Have you been annoyed by Los Angeles and can't find an outlet for your grievances?
Other than Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, your friends.
Just
your family,
yelling on a bus.
the mayor's office, the mayor's house.
Every Zoom meeting you find yourself on?
Every time you see anyone who looked like they might be an elected official. Well, then here's the episode. Here's the outlet you're looking for. Or maybe just screaming into a power outlet. For our November episode, which is next month, it's going to be another listener answered episode.
So you do all the work for us.
I was trying to avoid that phrase. So here's the question we want you to answer. We want you to send in your answers to this. What is one thing that annoys you most in Los Angeles? And I'm going to amend that from last time to be specific, because I get it. You hate everyone not from LA. I get it. You hate traffic. You hate people who are from LA. I get it.
I get it.
We're looking for a few more specific things, like a word people use.
Name names.
Yeah, if you have specific things like, oh, this street light is weird. This street light is not weird.
This podcast is bad. Not ours. It could be any one of the LA podcasts. One of the
This
four.
host of this podcast is rude. Anything like that. Yeah, send us in. The earlier the better, because we're going to be recording this one a little bit early. So if you can get these sent in to us in the next week or so from this coming out, let's have it. You'll be famous for a month. And then after that, back down to the poorhouse.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to comedy in LA.
Famous for a month, and then you're back down in the comedy poorhouse, which is...
You're back to Marty's now.
That is the comedy poorhouse. The comedy elite, what would that be? Echoes Under Sunset, if that even existed in the last 4 years since I was last there.
No.
See, I wouldn't even know. I've been spending so much time at Marty's. So anyway, that's what we want from you. Get that to us. While we're here, hey, leave us a review on iTunes. Also, support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. We will send you a handwritten postcard from us every single month.
You'll be our postcard pal. We'll name your name in a non-threatening way.
Yeah. For less than $5, well, you could just give us money.
Yeah.
I mean, that certainly won't annoy us either.
Yeah.
While we're here, follow us on Twitter at LA Meekly, Instagram LA_Meekly. Also, that's how you can send us the answers, is on those Instagram or Twitter, or email us la.meekly@gmail.com.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't do transitions anymore. I just end with a weird Nixon.
And a slow fade out.
I keep doing the impersonation. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's Elvis Nixon. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
When they shook hands that time, when he became, what was it, NRA or
Freaky Friday.
Yeah, they Freaky Friday.
So now what's happening, if you're a new listener, we've got an intro coming up. It's just a few minutes of fun, and then the actual episode will start, and then it won't be fun anymore. So we'll see you in a few minutes for no fun. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Didn't you get the memo? Halloween is canceled.
No, I'm not here to trick or treat.
Then why are you wearing a Frankenstein mask?
It's an N95 Frankenstein mask. It's all they had at the Spirit Halloween pharmacy.
Oh, yeah? Then why do you have eggs and toilet paper?
That's all they had left at the Spirit grocery store. Completely unrelated.
Okay, so why are you here?
Two things. First of all, do you have candy?
No.
Okay. You're the guy who puts missing people on milk cartons, right?
Yes, I'm Harvey Milkman.
Well, my friend Greg is missing, and he needs to be found with the help of the only medium I trust anymore, the side of a milk carton.
Hurry, to my pen and pad. Okay, describe this fellow to me.
Well, he's bald and really tired looking.
Okay. And how tall is he?
Not at all. He's got this shaky dog quality about him. A real detestable, loathsome kind of guy. He's got this nervousness that's just infectious, and it makes you just want to bully him and his whole family.
All right, shaky dog. And this is your friend?
No, he's my best friend. And he just has this way of walking down the street next to you that just makes you wonder, like, is he even listening to me? Would I even care if he got hit by a car right now?
Let's just keep the descriptions on the physical.
And he doesn't even wish you happy birthday, even though you bought him a calendar that only has one day on it. Oh, and he's lactose intolerant.
What? Listen to me. As long as I live, I will never put a lactose intolerant person on the side of a milk carton. Ever. Never, ever, ever. And maybe if he had drank milk, he'd have the keen sensibilities to find his way home.
But it makes him so gassy.
A small price to pay for the low, low price of milk. Now go get lost. See you on the milk carton. These words powered by milk. Honey, you wouldn't believe this. Some soy boy wanted to be put on the side of a milk carton. Honest to God, a carton of milk.
These people get bolder and bolder every year. Now sit back down for dinner.
Gladly. Pass me a slice of that cheese curd pie.
But honey, you haven't finished your macaroni and cheesecake.
I'll get to it. You know I like to arrange my bites in order of milk content. Can you pour some heavy cream in my coffee?
All right, tell me when.
So anywho, this guy is describing his friend, and I'm thinking, there's no way this guy's a milk drinker. And sure enough, the guy is L.I., lactose intolerant. Why would I ever help somebody who doesn't get their calcium from God's white gold?
Honey, it's impolite to talk without milk in your mouth.
I don't care anymore. I'm just so steamed up. The nerve of that guy. Oh, can you help my friend? I think he had too much margarine on the way to the oat milk store. His last known whereabouts is eating a cheeseless pizza while he uses a cow for beef.
You're bad.
Yeah, I'm bad, baby. When?
Oh, honey, have you read today's carton? The Milkerson's cow has gone missing.
Pass me the 110% milk.
But honey, you'll go into sensory overload. That milk's reserved for elite detectives and people from Salt Lake City.
I'm on the case.
No milk today, it seems a common sight, but people passing by don't know the reason why.
Welcome
Ooh.
one of the many episodes of L.A. Meekly, the podcast that'll have you saying, why don't you know what number it is?
Why don't you ever know what number it is? We do it once a month. It's sequential. I don't know why we can't get it.
You know, it'd be better if we had random numbers for it.
Yeah. Welcome to episode 2 of LA Meekly. Since this is our new home under this parking structure, we should just etch it into the walls.
You're right.
But let's wait till my building manager comes by again.
We'll wait till he's parked right in front of me.
And looking at where you decided to park today.
Yeah.
Because I told you to.
Hey, I don't work for him. I don't live under his
You know what?
reign.
You know what I've been saying? He works for me.
Yeah.
I pay the rent, so he works for me, and yet he does absolutely nothing. And every time I have something for him to do, he says, "No, that's your problem."
Dude, spank his butt.
I have. That was one of the things he said. That's your problem. Can people still? Can you hear the guitar riffs?
I could hear some music.
Now it's a ballad. Someone's having a pool party across the river.
It's pretty cool. I'm very envious.
The
I feel
pool
like
party.
Gatsby looking across the river.
At the rock and roll solos.
rock and roll solo.
Instead of a green light,
It's just Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo.
it's Tom Morello wearing a green shirt across the LA River.
I will listen to a guitar solo from Tom Morello and his Wawa Bar all day long, every day, forever.
Or my name isn't Jay Gatsby. So what? It's October.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, such as it is.
Nice.
Happy Halloween.
The first truly scary Halloween.
Since the first one they did after the witches killed everybody or whatever they do.
We gotta do
Halloween
this
for.
again. That's what they said.
Same time next year.
This was great. I think I just read a headline that the moon is gonna be blue on Halloween. You saw me standing alone without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own.
Didn't you say that?
guitar solo.
Can we hear your guitar solo for Blue Moon? You once told me that you would listen to any version of Blue Moon, and then I sent you a version of the mice from Babe singing Blue Moon, and I put you to the test.
Yeah, you tested me for sure.
Called your bluff now, didn't I?
I never said I would re-listen to every version of Blue Moon.
That'll be whatever. Like, what can we even go? Not that I'm saying, oh, thanks government for not letting us go out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go out on Halloween.
I'm not mad at the government. I'm mad at everybody for not staying home so I could have my Halloween.
If we just didn't have 4th of July, we would have had...
He's mad. That Tacoma's mad.
Mr. Tacoma, what do you think about Halloween this year? I would gladly have given up 4th of July for a Halloween.
Yeah.
And that's how it could have been. But no, I just had to eat all those hot dogs out of my grandma's mouth, didn't I? Let's talk about what we did in the last month before we
Okay.
get to this month.
You go first.
Oh, wait. First, let's do Patreon people.
Oh, wait.
That reminds me. What a smooth transition. We want to thank our new Patreon people next month. Here we go. It's not just Greg's mom this time.
What?
Carla Weber,
Hi,
Christopher Green.
Mr. Green. Hello.
Mr. Green, you know, He's actually what the light from The Great Gatsby is
Whoa, you didn't
based
go
on.
for a Clue board game joke.
Nah, I'm more of a Monopoly guy. And then we have Eric Sheeslow.
Hi, Eric.
Eric Sheeslow.
Mr. Sheeslow, excuse me
And-
for being informal.
Well, the next one we know who it is, and it's a fake name. So now I'm wondering if Eric Sheeslow is a fake name also. But
I don't think it is.
maybe Carla Weber's a fake name. I don't know.
They could all be fake names. What's
Christopher
real?
Green. Now we are in Clue.
He did it.
So after Eric Sheeslow, we have Dern Lamppost. But I know who you are. You're Matt Brousseau.
Yeah, we know you. What do you think you're trying to get away with?
We do deep dives on all of our Patreon people.
Yeah.
We're linked to the FBI through Patreon.
We did private investigative classes online through Zoom.
We took the Lydia course on how to...
Linda.
Is it Lydia? No, there's Lydia... Well, who's Lydia?
I don't know.
Lydia, the
daughter
tattooed
from,
lady?
The daughter from Beetlejuice? I don't know.
That's who I take my classes from. Yeah, that's Matt Brousseau of Profiles and Eccentricity, and also a friend of ours.
This is a fantastic podcast.
Yeah, they give us money, so I guess we see who the actual superb podcast is. So then we have one more. This person who I thought was related to you. I assume that every Patreon person is related to you.
I have a lot of relatives. Sorry, we're going to watch this Jeep hit my car.
Oh, that's the
Tune
person.
in next time to find out.
Your car isn't there anymore, remember?
You had me park in a space that a person was
No.
coming
You
to?
parked next to the space that the giant Jeep parks in.
You thought I was going to be safe next to a giant Jeep. You clearly... And you've seen Jurassic Park. Great. This is great. What a great friendship this is.
Look,
Who's the last
it's
patron?
not my car. This one is Jose Gonzalez.
Oh,
so
hi,
you
Mr.
can
Gonzalez.
understand.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I
see.
get it.
I
What?
get it.
Just because we're both named Gonzalez, suddenly we might know each other, like all the other Gonzalezes.
And
who
just
have been
because
our
I know a
Patreon
slew of people named Jose Gonzalez, you think I know this one? I might. I don't know.
This particular Jose Gonzalez is not related to you, but the rest are. So yeah, those are our new 5 new people this month. That's fun.
Welcome aboard. Thank you for supporting us. We always
Thank you. And
appreciate it.
hey, the more the merrier. I just ordered way too many postcards printed, so
Cool.
those will be going out, and I don't want them sitting on my desk anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I've almost spilled water on them like 3 times already, so you better start subscribing.
Yeah, the postcards are the problem for being
If the
there.
postcards weren't there, I wouldn't have gotten nervous about the postcards and spilled water all over them.
The postcards are making me thirsty. Can't you see the correlation between the two things?
Because there's so much wood pulp flying
They're
off
blocking
of them.
they're blocking the wind. My throat is getting dry.
I've got a 20-foot top, like a pillar of salt, salt pillars of Gomorrah of postcards. And that's how I think of our Patreon people.
My hand smells like vomit. I don't know why. My mask smells like dog dew.
You do have a dog now.
I do have a dog now. Ringo, Ruiz, Arzetta, Gonzalez, Meekly.
That's fun. So he's partially mine then.
You get 1/6 of him.
I can only see this investment growing. So I accept. Now let's talk about what we did in the last month of September.
I'll go first. It's just quick. I did not go to the 50th anniversary of the Chicano Moratorium they had on Whittier Boulevard.
What did they have? I mean, what can you have during
I think they did. They
coronavirus?
had another march, and they had like just information and probably speakers and stuff like that. I wasn't around for that, but we checked out the mural that they painted. I forgot on what street. It's off of Whittier Boulevard near. I think it's only like a mile from the Silver Dollar Bar where they shot Ruben Salazar. But
Isn't that right next to the Mariachi Plaza?
No. It's no.
Oh, I was thinking of M Bar.
You are thinking of M Bar.
That's not the place that they
That's
shot.
not where
Ruben
they
Salazar.
shot Ruben Salazar. That's another place now. It's really good. I think it's Chalice now. It doesn't matter to you. You don't care about anything. But I checked out the mural they did, the Chicano Moratorium mural. I wish I knew the artist. I don't have it offhand, but it's fantastic. I love murals and lots of angles, lots of straight lines. But
It's on a wall.
I've never actually walked on Whittier Boulevard before, which is great. Like we parked to look at the mural.
I haven't either, but is that one of those streets that like Van Nuys?
Yeah,
or,
Cruise Night Streets.
Yeah, where it used to be like a big deal, and now it's kind of
No, it's still a big deal.
still a big deal.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's still a main drag of.
Well, then what's Van Nuys' excuse?
It wasn't on Van Nuys. It was on Sepulveda. My car broke down, and I had to walk to the
Sepulveda, which is like conjoined twin of Van Nuys Boulevard.
It's the older, more mature, like slightly more mature brother of Van Nuys. But yeah, anyways, some ladies of the evening rooted me on as I went to go get gas because my car ran out of gas, and they're like, "I hope you get where you're going safely." And I said, "Thank you."
This is Sepulveda, though. What happened to you on Whittier?
Oh, nothing. We walked the dog and we checked out the mural, and it was fantastic. And I wanted to do a mural hunting because we turned the corner and there was a big school there with a much bigger mural, and I was much more interested in. I wasn't much more interested. I was also interested in this mural, but because we did not park and look at it, in my head, I'm much more interested. But I'm not more interested. I just wanted to see it more.
Yeah, I guess Greg really does hate Whittier Boulevard. So what I did in the past month, my thing was Dine LA.
Oh, that's right. You did the Dine LA
I did
thing.
Dine LA. This year I had to do takeout because again we had 4th of
come?
July.
Why?
Why don't you go to restaurants like I do?
Well, you've been kind of weird for the last 6 months. What's going on?
Why don't you sit in restaurants like I do for the past 6 months? I'm the only one in there. They keep yelling at me. I guess because they're about to close, but I'm the only one in there.
I don't know what weird fashion thing happened in the last couple of months, but everyone's got a lot of plastic.
I think I developed face blindness because Everyone seems to have masks all over their faces. I don't know if I've talked about Dine LA before as my thing of the month. I keep a little list, but I lost track of it because I stopped keeping the list, so I don't know if I've already said it, but it's twice a year for 2 weeks. Restaurants all over town do set menus, so it's like $20, $25, $35, also $30 or $50. Some of them are $60, but we don't talk about those. You go to these restaurants and they have a set menu, and the best ones will have like first course, second course, third course, dessert, or first, you'll get a lot of food, and it's a good way to try new restaurants. And the one we did this year was Parata, which was in the Arts District, right next to where we took that famous picture of us sitting at the table downtown.
Oh, you told me about that. That's right. There's a red door. There's a lamp. We're sitting there. I had hair.
I still had the dew of youth all over me. But yeah, that was my thing. It was fun to try a new restaurant.
Yeah.
But again, like I've always been saying, it's never the same to me than sitting down at a restaurant, but it's like some way to support these places and not have to cook for one day.
That's always nice. I try to do eating out at least 5 times a week.
A day. 5 times a week.
5 times a week, once every day. I'm just I'm controlling myself from urges, but
I've really cut back from how it was beforehand. Like I used to eat out 30, 35, sometimes 60 times a week. But yeah, Dine LA is fun in any form to try out a new place. One of the finalists, because we go through the whole list that they have on like the Dine LA website, and we narrow it down to like these 40 look good, and then we slowly over like a week or two narrow it down. One of the ones was the Dunbar Hotel has a restaurant inside of it, and we were going to do that, but we had just, like, of the 4 times we've gone to pick up food, one of them has been soul food, so we wanted to try something different, but the restaurant looked very good.
The Dunbar had food and you didn't go eat it?
I want to sit in the Dunbar and eat the food. I don't want to take it and then leave the Dunbar. Like, I want to go in there, you could pound on every door. Where did, what's his name? Where did Bird stay? Like, why can't I think of his name?
Charlie
Parker.
Is Sun Ra here?
Where's the bird? Where's the bird?
Where's Diz?
I would like to go there once this is over to sit and hang out in the Dunbar Hotel. Would be nice.
Once this is all over.
When this is we can all go back to our normal lives.
Our completely normal lives.
That was the only interesting thing I did last month.
I mean, we're only allowed like a couple things a month that are interesting and fun.
You can't do more than 2 interesting things a month or else you get coronavirus.
You get coronavirus and then another LA landmark shuts down.
Yeah, as punishment.
They'll build a Pacific Dining car and then take it away.
They got a last minute donor. Oh no, it was Monopoly money. So yeah, that was last month. Let's do our listener question for this month.
Okay.
It's tied into the month of October. This one is from What I Doodle on My iPad on Instagram. She has adorable twin babies.
She does have adorable twin babies.
And she sent us a video. She played the LA Meekly theme song for the babies, and they were freaking out. They're very cute babies. So her question is, what did people do for Halloween during the Spanish flu? Was trick-or-treating a thing? And I know you looked into this. I know you lived through this.
And I was very surprised to find out that it's the same thing that we're doing this year. I'll read what I wrote. According to an article from PolishNews.com, it could have been PolishNews.com.
According to an article from RussianLies.net.
They were saying that the autumn of 1918 was the second and worst wave of the 1918 flu pandemic, which killed between 50 million and 100 million people worldwide. An article written on October 30th in LA says the flu was under control and expected at the time to subside soon, but the next paragraph basically says flu cases and deaths remained steady. So it didn't
It's exactly what they're saying.
Well, it didn't get worse. Health commissioner, his last name is Powers. I couldn't find his first name.
It's so funny that literally I just told you how many cases there were today, and in the same thing, they're like, well, I think it's getting better.
Yeah. They must be looking at numbers so much and detached from the numbers corresponding to human lives. When they see a small dip or it not grow, they're like, doing pretty good.
Let's go to the bar.
Let's all have quinceañeras today. So the health commissioner at the time, he was saying that there are no more cases per day than there was a week ago. It is simply being reported by doctors more now than the previous weeks.
Wow. Like word for word press releases.
He urged people to stop neighborhood chatting and visiting because it was the only thing that was going to keep it under control was limiting, spreading, and scattering. And people just didn't get it. In 1918, the advice was to stay home until it passed, and they were having a lot of trouble because, 4th of July, Memorial Day weekends around the corner. That being said, Halloween was canceled that year. Canceled being strongly discouraged by health authorities.
It was officially canceled here for like 30 minutes.
And then they heard 2 people like, oh, why? And they're like, okay, don't do it. On October 31st.
You can't not do it, but don't do it.
We'll hand candy to you if you come up to our door.
How about this? To discourage trick-or-treating, the mail delivers candy to every house in the United States.
I love it. They become Santa Claus of Halloween. Yeah. And as you predict,
They're all Jack Skellingtons.
In Santa Ana, the newspaper said October 31st, noiseless Halloween. By no means heard of one.
What?
It was weird. And they didn't spell one. They put like the number one. Yeah. Children still dressed up though, even with nowhere
It
to
was
go.
all spelled in emojis from 1918. I can't decipher these 1918 emojis.
Children still dressed up. They had
Eggplants
nowhere to
look
go.
so different.
Are you going to keep talking over me or what?
Oh, are you talking?
This was written on November 4th, 1918 for the LA Times. That flu mask Halloween party didn't come off. Every wearer of a flu mask should have been there. A big hall could have been hired and nobody would have recognized anybody. The affair would have been novel, sanitary, and quote-unquote safe. Why didn't anyone think of it in time?
So they're saying...
Why didn't we rent a big hall and all wear flu masks and regular masks? It would have been fine.
Because that's exactly what they're saying not to do. Cute.
1918. We only get smarter. We only get smarter.
It doesn't seem like there was
No, there wasn't a
trick-or-treating.
Halloween that year. It sounded like kids got dressed up and took I don't know if they took pictures or not, but
They
I don't know
took
if cameras were a thing
daguerreotypes.
at the
The hell had oil paintings made.
Yeah, they just no trick or treating that year, and then everyone's like, "Why didn't we rent a big hall?" That's gonna be like this year. It's just gonna be a lot of kids dressed up and taking pictures at
All
home.
dressed up and nowhere to go.
Yep.
Look, we say that. We know what Halloween's actually going to be like. It's
Yeah.
going to be exactly the same.
Oh yeah, no,
Instead of going trick-or-treating, they're all going to be at bars with their parents.
nobody's checking IDs anymore. Kids know that, right?
He's-
Any
oh.
underage kids
Oh, look,
listening to
Ronald
this?
Reagan's walking in. He's shorter than I remember him. No holiday hurts more than Halloween, because Halloween is like a month of fun, and we can't do any of it.
And it's also the first time in a long time it's going to be cold. Like
Yeah.
every Halloween is like that's the first week that I get to
Yeah.
wear a jacket out, and I love being out that first week of.
Yep. Well, look, if the mail isn't going to deliver candy to all of our houses, I'm hoping everyone just leaves a candy lineup on their driveway, and I'm running up and taking it.
Or they can do like an appointment thing. Like you request candy from this one house, they'll give you like, oh, you free
For-
between 8:30 to 9.
From 8:30 and 10 seconds to 8:30 and 20 seconds.
Yeah,
you can come.
we do curbside pickup.
We should develop in time DoorDash for Halloween candy.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones trick-or-treating, and it's a
Mhm.
dream come true that I've always wanted.
I have enough costumes to cover me for every house.
Different costume. Ooh, it smells like barbecue. I think the guitar solos has ended and now the hamburgers have begun. This month it's our October not spooky, although you have some spooky stuff. You
Mine were kind of creepy. I mean, they creep me out.
Speaking of fall, there's mosquitoes flying around now
I don't know how that has to do with fall, but
because there's blood. Because I'm oozing
because
blood.
the fall
right
of the
now.
House of Usher. That's why. God, you never read.
Well, we're doing disappearances, unsolved disappearances from Los Angeles history. Mine aren't scary other than just people disappeared and we don't know
which
where
is
they are.
scary. They make
Yeah.
whole shows called Unsolved Mysteries about this thing, and you're like,
This
it's
is
not
a
that
little different. These are
Um,
unsolved disappearances.
because usually our October episodes are a lot
Halloween
of fun
themed.
So it'd be like Elvira, Vampira,
Yeah, graveyard.
graveyards, and now it's like, well, as I was typing it up, I'm like, oh, this is more of a December creepy Christmas thing. But
Not mine. I had a lot of fun with mine.
I'm gonna start then. You
Yeah,
tell
you
me if
go
this is
first.
creepy, okay?
Okay.
It was too scary for you.
Tell me to stop.
Just raise your left hand like you're at the dentist, and I'll stop, okay?
Just spit into your spit cup and I'll know it's too scary.
On October 7th, 1949, at 5:30 p.m., 26-year-old Jean Spangler leaves the apartment on Colgate Avenue, saying that she was going to meet her ex-husband to talk about child support payments. Then after that, she's going to go work at the studios. No one ever saw her again.
It's interesting that you decided to start yours the same way of like the mystery.
The
and
mystery.
now let's unsolve it.
Yeah, no,
unsolve
let's
it.
unpack this box here.
No, let's unsolve it.
So who is Jean Spangler?
I don't know.
You didn't do research? Oh,
This is-
Daniel, you messed up big time this time.
This is Ellie Meekly episode final exam. You didn't study?
Why aren't you wearing pants? Jean Spangler.
You're in the wrong classroom.
You can't remember your locker combination?
Hello, the test ended an hour ago.
You're on stage at an open mic and you don't remember any of your jokes?
And you keep trying to riff and no one's
And
laughing?
no one's laughing and you pulling out notes, but you can't read them?
Because you sweat all over them because
You
you're
sweat
so
all over
sweaty and everyone smells you?
I love nightmares. They're great.
Happy
for our-
Halloween!
Our October episode should have just been nightmares
Our
we have.
nightmare. Nightmares we've had for the past 6 months.
Jean Spangler
Mhm.
was born in Seattle on September 2nd, 1923. I'm not quite sure when her family gets to Los Angeles, but she graduates from Franklin High in Highland Park. By the time she was done with high school, she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She was already modeling and dancing in Fullerton Gardens and the Earl Carroll Theater, and by 1941, she was scoring some bit parts and extra work in movies and TV. She apparently appears in a movie called When My Baby Smiles at Me and another one called Chicken Every Sunday, both horrible titles.
Chicken every Sunday?
Chicken Every Sunday, which is, I imagine, going to be the title of your eulogy to your parents.
That's the motto of Dine LA.
Someone also shared a screenshot of her in a Three Stooges short, Mummy's Dummies.
That's spooky.
So she's like walking down a hallway in a swimsuit. If you are familiar with that.
If you're looking for racy pictures of women from
Of
the
missing,
20s.
yeah, if
or
you're looking
30s.
for a screenshot to put on a post office or a milk carton to say this woman's missing, that's a good one to have.
Larry, Moe, Curly,
And
where
that
are
missing
they?
woman.
The fourth stooge.
Jean was a very beautiful woman, a tall, statuesque statuesque brunette with willowy hair in an era where it was very popular to be those things, so you could see her climbing the ranks and getting better roles one day. The next year, 1942, when she was 19 years old, she marries a plastic manufacturer named Dexter Banner, which is the name of an action hero. During the war, he was stationed with the Army in the South Pacific, but it wasn't a good marriage, and after 6 months, they filed for divorce, her accusing him of cruelty. He accused her of preferring parties to priorities, which is a perfect rhyme scheme. They later found out that during his time in South Pacific, Jean had had an affair with an Air Corps lieutenant.
Whoa, okay. I thought this was where the creepy part comes in. An Air Corps.
Air Corps.
An Air Bud.
Jean and Dexter also continued an on-again, off-again relationship that lasted about 5 years after they got a divorce, or I guess like through the divorce or something. And during this time when she was also with Dexter, she also had many other relationships with men in LA and Palm Springs, which if you're a beautiful unmarried woman now, do your thing, whatever. But during all this in 1944, they had a child together, Christine. Their divorce wouldn't be finalized until 1946, so in the meantime, the two entered into a long custody battle over their daughter. Originally, custody was granted to Dexter, but after 2 years of battling over her, Jean was awarded custody of Christine. A week before her disappearance, she was seen in Palm Springs with a man named David Ogle, or as Mickey Cohen and his associates called him, Little Davy. She met him and several other mafia men while working at Florentine Gardens, which was a gangster hangout. I think it was on Hollywood Boulevard. 2 days before Jean disappears, Little Davy disappears after being indicted on conspiracy charges.
For some reason, I thought that Little Davy was her son, and I was like, oh no, he disappeared.
Oh no, he's in the
He was
mafia?
indicted. Start him young.
Damn, it does smell good.
Yeah, it does. This barbecue's really heating up. Excuse me, I gotta go tell them that across the river.
Excuse me, I left my mask on the other side of the river, but this party's really heating up.
Why does my throat hurt?
Your guys' throat hurt too? It didn't before I started talking, but now it does?
What is it, the 4th of July?
Okay, so let's get there. Jean lived in the Wilshire district, 6216 Colgate Avenue at the Palm La Brea apartments, along with Christine, her daughter, her mom Florence, her brother Edward, and his wife Jean's sister-in-law Sophie. On October 7th, her mother's out of town. She has told her sister-in-law that she's going to the farmer's market to meet Dexter to talk about an increase in child support payments, which he is a week overdue with. After that, she's going to head to work as an extra for a nighttime shoot, so no one would see her till much later. That would be incredibly normal if no one saw her for the rest of the night. At 5:30, all dolled up and in good spirits, she said goodbye to her daughter and family and left.
These moments like that keep coming up in both of ours of like, and this, this is the
This
last
is
time
it.
they ever spoke to anybody.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad.
It's very sad and creepy. Huh?
My left hand isn't up, so no.
And of course, the omen with wings are here.
Yeah, the crows are here. That's how you know the story's getting a little scary.
When the next day came and Jean wasn't home, Sophie filed a missing persons report, so police start investigating. Turns out Dexter says he did not meet up with Jean the previous evening, as she had told her sister-in-law. He hadn't seen her for a week. And police find out while investigating that no studio had plans for Spangler that evening. The Screen Extras Guild also look into it, and they have no record of a call for extra work that night, and neither do the TV studios. Police spoke with a co-star, Robert Cummings, who said in a casual conversation, he said that he was in a casual conversation with Spangler, and she mentioned being in a new romance. He asked her if it was serious, and she said, not exactly, but I'm having the time of my life. On top of that, a friend of Spangler's told investigators that Spangler informed her that she was pregnant before she disappeared. Jean's friend, Shirley Ann Morris, told police that she saw Jean with an older man in a sedan on Lancashire Boulevard at 7:40
Wait,
a.m.
an
on
older
Thursday.
man in a sedan?
Yeah.
Is that like a...
Like a Beach Boy song?
Yeah, an old man in a sedan.
Old man in a sedan. You know the little old lady from Pasadena? This is her husband. You know what
It's
kind of
about
house they
time he
have,
got
what
his
area
due.
they're in.
He's not home much. He's an old man in a sedan.
So her friend Shirley sees Jean with this older man in a sedan on Lancashire at 7:40 on the Thursday, the one before she disappeared. Like I was saying, I don't know if that's the night before she disappeared or the following week. They brought in Thomas Allery Evans, who was a gambler and ex-bodyguard of Tony the Hat Canero. On
I thought we were
suspicion.
done with these gangster nicknames.
Okay, the Hat, for listeners who don't remember, is the gangster who had gambling ships off of...
Oh, that's the guy?
That's the Hat.
Oh,
off
wait,
the coast.
that's the one who might have killed JFK, right?
Or-
Wait, what was his name?
Tony Canero.
I think that's the one that there's a urban legend that he killed Kennedy.
That his hat has a grassy knoll underneath it.
Yeah, they call him the Hat because he's like Odd Job, and he.
Yeah, that's right. Magic bullet or magic hat?
No one was looking for a hat, were they? Hats couldn't register on 16 millimeter.
Back then, you didn't even need a background check to buy a hat. You could just get a hat off the
Anywhere.
rack. 9 millimeter.
12 gallon, banana clips, whatever you needed on those things. You could get a little reporter's feather.
No
Nobody
cops would
asked
stop you.
questions.
Yeah, no one asked questions. No cops would stop you. It was the Wild West. That year, 1960. I don't remember when JFK was shot.
1960 Kennedy.
A year that we'll always remember. The early 60s.
A year that will live in infamy.
Yeah, a year that will live in infamy. The 40s.
The greatest generation. Old people.
Racist old people. So all the stuff about Canero, I don't know. I'll have to go back and repeat it a little bit. They brought in Thomas Allery Evans, who was a gambler and an ex-bodyguard of the Hat. They linked this guy with 2 missing persons. One of them was Spangler. The other one I'll talk about in a little bit. Mimi. You can't make fun of this name, okay? You can't do it. It's a missing person. You have to be really sensitive.
Fine.
Take a deep breath, and I'm going to say it. Mimi Boomhauer. I didn't laugh at her name. I laughed at your face.
You're kidding me.
Mimi Boomhauer.
And
I can't laugh at it.
But Greg, it was on TV for like 12 seasons.
It's like Boomhauer married what's her name from
Mimi Buffet.
Buffet, yeah.
Wait, no, that's Phoebe Buffet. Mimi from
Drew Carey Show.
Drew Carey Show. What was her last name? Was her name also Buffet? Is she
I
related
thought
to
it was
Phoebe?
Buffet, but I don't.
Is she related to Phoebe from Friends?
Oh my God, she always talked about her twin sister. That's her twin sister.
Her twin sister looks nothing
That's
like
Ursula.
her.
Mimi's Ursula. It surprised me
Mimi
how
looks kinda
fast
like
I
Ursula.
pulled that name out of my mental Rolodex.
There's certain things from Friends that have just stuck in our mind. Pivot.
Yeah,
we were on
yeah.
a break. Chenandler Bong.
That's
Yeah.
not even a real job.
Ursula is your Chenandler Bong. Now okay, don't distract me from this woman's name being Boomhauer by bringing up the Drew Carey Show. I
Hey.
didn't know people's names could be Boomhauer. Does
That's
that
a
mean
real-
Boomhauer's last name was Boomhauer, not his first name?
I have no idea.
Is he related to Phoebe?
Are all the blonde people on TV related?
I think they might be. I think we're onto something. The ultimate crossover.
3-camera live action shows
and a
and an
cartoon.
animated series that all take place in America, in the South and the East Coast.
The greatest country on earth.
Where did
North
Drew Carey-
America.
Where did Drew Carey take place?
Cleveland Rocks. So
oh, that's right,
Cleveland.
Cleveland Rocks. That's what it was.
Took place in Cleveland Rocks, whatever state Cleveland is in. Oh yeah, he yells it at the end of the song. Ohio.
I thought I was smart for knowing it right now. I'm being like, it's clearly Ohio.
Stick to Friends.
A clerk at a local
All right,
market.
I'll
told-
let it go. I'll let it
Let it go. A clerk at a local market told police that she saw Spangler on the night she disappeared, October 7th. She came in the store alone, but said she looked like she was waiting for somebody. 3 employees at a cafe in Salinas, California, said they saw a woman matching her description eating there around lunchtime on Tuesday the 12th, so like a week after she disappeared.
And where's Salinas?
Salinas is up north by Monterey.
Okay.
It's Steinbeck country.
Yeah, it is. Whenever I've driven past Salinas, it's like, don't you want to see where John Steinbeck's from?
You don't want to walk his walk? You don't want to walk the beat? This is where he yelled at his dog. Travels with Charlie? That's where the Charlie happened.
These are the mice from Mice and Men. One of mine is a similar thing of like, we saw them going, like heading north shortly afterwards. I guess everyone just, but why would you take the PCH? If you're trying to escape, don't take the scenic route is what I'm getting at.
You got it. You're trying to argue with people who've disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Don't pick PCH if you're trying to get away.
Try to give advice how to disappear better.
The first real clue comes 2 days later, the following Sunday, when her black cloth purse is found at the entrance to Ferndale at Griffith Park. Have you been to Ferndale before?
No.
Okay, so there's Vermont that takes you up to the observatory, and I believe it's the back way out of there. It's where the Trails Cafe is. There's a little like cute little bridge park area that's enclosed.
So it's in Griffith
You've heard of
Park?
Los Angeles before, right? You've
Wait,
been
what's
there?
the Griffith Observatory?
So the main entrance into Griffith Park on the Hollywood side is up Vermont, basically.
Right,
And there's
like going
another
past
street.
the Greek?
Yeah.
I know that.
So if you go further by the bear statue where Clifford Clinton lived, when you're getting closer to Western, there's another street that goes up. I believe connects to the observatory on the opposite end. At the mouth of that is pretty much like, well, not at the mouth, but like 10
Ferngully?
seconds out is Ferndale, which is like a closed, beautiful area to walk.
I mean, it sounds made up, but okay.
And this is Ferngully, you're saying?
This
With
is where
Christian Slater?
Is there some sort of crossover with Beavis and Butthead coming? Or like, why are you telling me this?
I hate this podcast so much.
Oh, go have fun with Glendale. Doom, doom.
Dum dum.
There was a village. Boom. Not enough flute for my liking. Oh my God, the barbecue? What did he say?
Turn it off.
Turn
And
it
I also heard trash can hoe.
Sounds like the hamburgers are ready.
The straps of her purse were found to be ripped off, and inside, as the LA Times puts it, they find usual feminine trifles, Jesus Christ, and an unsigned, unfinished note.
Okay.
Addressed to Kirk, it read, "Can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." The note ended with a comma as if it was interrupted while writing it.
We don't know any Kirk, do we? I'm not saying you and I, but in this story, do we know
Not
Kirk?
so far.
Okay. Is this a Star Trek crossover?
It is actually a Star Trek crossover. When I was doing research, I thought Kirk, like Kirk Cameron, but in my head I saw Captain Kirk. Captain James.
Kirk Captain.
Kirk Captain. Captain James Kirk Cameron. And my brain does that sometimes, and I think that I'm not well.
I think I'm having an aneurysm.
This is how strokes start. I smell toast. On the 15th,
That's the barbecue.
On the 15th, 60 members of the LAPD's Valley Division Reserve Squad rode horses through the 4,523 acres of Griffith Park looking for more clues, starting from Ferndale, where the purse was found, then spreading outwards. They didn't find anything. So the two things...
Kind of hard to... I mean... That's a lot of ground to
Yeah.
cover.
On horses, you're even farther from the ground. Were they blood horses? Like bloodhounds, but horses?
Yeah, really droopy, saggy horses.
So the two things cops have to go on is Dr. Scott and Kirk, who are mentioned in the note. Because of the claim from Jean's friend that she might have been pregnant, they suspected Dr. Scott might have been performing illegal abortions and maybe something went wrong.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah. They searched LA
and I know abortions.
Trust me. They searched LA for any doctors with the last name Scott, but nothing turned up. Their most promising lead was a former medical student who frequented the Sunset Strip performing abortions for money. They confirmed his identity, but even with that, they were never able to locate him. No clues to his whereabouts, nothing. Oh, and the lieutenant that Jean had an affair with when she was married to Dexter, his name was Scotty. And this Scotty had been violent towards her and threatened to murder her if she broke off the relationship. But by all accounts, the two had been done for like 4 years and hadn't seen each other since. Then there was the Little Davy connection. She and Little Davy, the gangster...
Her gangster son boyfriend.
No, so he leaves town for good. Maybe a lot of people are thinking, did she leave with Little Davy? Did she leave the country and leave her family behind? Or had she seen something that she wasn't supposed to and got whacked? In 1950, a U.S. Customs agent in El Paso, Texas, told LAPD detectives that they might have spotted Jean Spangler at a hotel with Little Davy and Frank Nicoli, another LA gangster who had disappeared in September of 1949 because of similar charges that Davy faced. So these two guys that knew Spangler in the same year, around the same span of months, disappear, so they thinking maybe she went with them. And then we have Kirk, the juiciest part, for last. They never figured out who the note was addressed to. Jean's mother said that she had mentioned to Kirk, but Jean never stated who he was. But because he didn't want any special scandal on his name, Kirk Douglas called the LAPD from Palm Springs to tell them that Jean had been cast as an extra. Basically, that's the call. It was just like, because she was in a recent film of his, Young Man with a Horn, but he was like, I barely remembered her. We talked and kidded. He said, but never saw her before or after. Some people speculate that this was the man that she'd been seeing casually, nothing serious, but was having the time of her life, was this casual fling
with Kirk Douglas,
and she got pregnant and he killed her.
Whoa.
Probably not, but juicy.
Yeah, that is juicy. I think we should blame the sun. So you're saying Michael Douglas?
You're saying Ant-Man's Michael Douglas.
The ultimate crossover, Boomhauer meets Ant-Man. That's juicy.
That is
juicy. That's some Hollywood juice right there.
I remember stumbling on that like on Tumblr like years ago and being like, oh, I wish I had a podcast to talk about this. And then I have one. I wish it was better.
Hang on, let me just put in some music drops a la Glendale Library. Kirk Douglas. I'll play the guitar solo from across the river.
We could just get all of the crow sounds. Every time I say something suspicious, there's crow sounds.
That's when we're talking about Jet Li. No, wait, not Jet. Yeah, Jet Li. No,
not Jet Li. Brandon Lee. My favorite thing was that we're at an open mic. I think it was at Chris's house. But Ramsey was talking about like his idea of a sexy man, and it was the crow. And I laughed, but not because I thought it was funny, but because I agreed with him so much, and I had never thought.
I think you should revisit the crow.
No thanks. I like to like it. If I revisit it, I won't like it.
It's some things are best disappearing.
What's wrong with a movie about Devil's Night where all the bad guys who are in hackers are like, fire it up?
What's wrong with a movie if you wanted Batman to be the Joker, but he played guitar?
Played by Bruce Lee's son. It's all the things
Jet
I
Li.
like. Luella Parsons went on TV offering a reward for $1,000, which in the late 40s was over $10,000, for any information on Jean's whereabouts. Nothing substantial ever came in. No one knows what happened to Jean Spangler. She disappeared with leaving behind only one cryptic clue and no leads to that.
Spartacus did this.
I killed her. No, I killed her. Is Dexter lying about seeing his ex-wife about child support payments? Is Scotty lying about having not seen Jean for 4 years? Was an abortion gone wrong? A mob hit? A runaway mom? Is the Kirk in the note actor Kirk Douglas? We'll never know these things.
Mm-hmm.
To add even more to the Spangler case, a month before she went missing, 48-year-old socialite Mimi Boomhauer disappeared without a trace. She's like one of the women you hear about in mystery novels. She had inherited her lace...
Oh my God, these crows. You're getting too close to the heart of the issue here.
She was one of the women I hear about only in mystery novels. She had inherited her late husband's fortune and lived in their 10-room Spanish-style mission in the middle of Bel Air by herself, widowed for 6 years.
And she was very wary of the world and visitors.
And her neck was so perfect, like a perfect length for strangling, like a perfect circumference. As of that year, her money was on the skids and she was pawning stuff off. At 7 or 8 p.m. on August 18th of 1949, she spoke to a friend over the phone, then left her house in a change of window closed. She left her sedan locked and parked at home, and they found an uneaten salad on the dining room table and all the lights on.
Wait a minute. She had a sedan too?
Yeah. The sedan is not like a... It's not like a model of a car. It's like a type of car. Like, this is a sedan.
Yeah, I know,
this is a
but
sedan.
I think there's something going on with sedans here.
I think that if you owned a sedan in an era where sedans were being made only...
No, I'm a coupe kind of guy.
I drive an A-model jalopy. I'm not a sedan man.
I don't have any doors.
She left in a hurry or left expecting to return soon? Question mark. She didn't. Earlier in the week, she told a friend that she would be busy on the night of the 18th and told her business manager she was going to meet a man that night, but didn't say who. And I don't mean to sound like My Favorite Murder, but always tell someone who you're meeting or who you're seeing. Don't be like, oh, it's my mystery man. I'll tell you tomorrow. Like, you're going to die.
I met him on the pre-internet.
I met him on the newspapers. Her gardener said that for a week prior to her vanishing, a middle-aged man with white hair would pull up in an expensive-looking car in the driveway next door and watch her house. They never found out who that man was. Because she lived alone, she wasn't reported missing for several days. Some think she ran away and eloped because while discussing something, she slipped and said, let me check with my husband, but he'd been dead for 6 years. A full week later, on the 25th, they found a white calfskin handbag in a telephone booth on Wilshire Boulevard. On the side of the purse, someone had written this message: Police Department. We found this at the beach Thursday night. She went missing on that Thursday. Nothing unusual about the contents, not even any sand or water. She was declared dead 11 days after her disappearance, which is weird because usually it's 90 days, so then they reversed it. No one knows what happened to Mimi Boomhauer, not in the slightest, but many suspect murder.
You saying that they declared her dead so soon makes me think maybe it was a witness protection thing.
Oh, wow, I didn't think about that. Shady.
That wasn't spooky. I'm not spooked.
You're not spooked by Jean Spangler going missing?
But like I said, these are all inherently spooky because people are disappearing, but that wasn't like, and then they found this shadow that said, I'm Kirk Douglas.
I might have raped Natalie Wood. And that's what the shadow said.
The shadow knows.
The shadow does know.
That wasn't spooky. I think that's a good mystery.
I don't think that you love anybody, because if you love people, you'd be more concerned if people just went up and missing. And I think that you have no empathy. But that's okay. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't spooky.
Okay, well, you talk like Boomhauer, and but let's go to mine. You tell me if this is spooky in your opinion once it's over.
Does it start with a hook?
Yeah, there's a bloody hook. This isn't spooky, is it? Anyway, let's start with mine. Like we were saying, I normally start each story with a classic witticism. But for these, I want to first tell you the incident of a disappearance, because for me, doing the research, that's how I started. Like, I read what happened, and things seemed cut and dry, but the more you get into it, the more you see, like, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was like yours could have ended 14 different ways. Yeah. Like, you slowly start to learn more.
That's where the spooky lives.
That's where the mystery isn't spooky.
Mysteries are spooky. What happened?
So you're sitting there reading Agatha Christie. M is for, I guess, murder, and you're saying, ooh boy, better turn on some lights.
First of all, unanswered questions that go on forever are spooky to me.
So it seems like you're just afraid of not knowing the answer to everything.
I'm afraid that someone got away with doing an awful thing and is still out there.
You're afraid of people thinking you're dumb. Yeah, this person, we know Kirk Douglas is dead.
Maybe you should see The Vanishing and get back to me about why mysterious disappearances are terrifying.
They're scary, but not spooky. We'll let the listener decide. Send us in for your December answers. What's scary? What's spooky? Okay, so after I tell you the mystery, I've got witties for you. I've got all sorts of witty lines for you. October 26, 1944. A pilot named Gertrude Tompkins Silver took off in an airplane from Mines Field, which is now LAX, at 3:42 p.m., headed to arrive in Palm Springs a few hours later. Immediately after takeoff, her plane went into some fog and was never seen again. No wreckage, no body, nothing. Gertrude Tompkins Silver disappeared.
So you don't think alien abductions are scary? That's clearly what happened here, cut and dry.
On first glance, that's what I got.
Clearly what I thought of.
I'll pay you 30 pieces of silver for just a sliver of your knowledge of Gertrude Tompkins Silver, and I'll throw in the Son of God for free.
You don't have to do this. You could just read.
No, I told you at the beginning I do have to do this.
I'm legally obligated to do this.
This is part of the contract. Alien abduction was never even on the table here. Alien abductions have more... It doesn't happen that quickly. It's not like the tractor beam pulling in the Millennium Falcon.
Okay, first of all, you don't understand anything about aliens because they are the fog. I'm going to look up what year Roswell happened, and you're going to feel like an idiot.
Was that like 1941 or something? Oh, my God.
Mines Field. October 31st, 1940, whatever you said.
They transported Mines Field from Roswell. That's alien crash land.
1947. 3 years later, that thing crashes in New Mexico.
Gertrude Tompkins Silver found in New Mexico. So this is the story of somebody I think most of the meek sad sacks who listen to us are going to relate to. And also, they're going to get sad, not spooked.
It's the
So
same thing, too. That's another same thing.
sadness is frightening to me. Gertrude Vreeland Tompkins, Vreeland.
I've seen that before
Have you
as
really?
a name, but the first time I saw it, I'm like, that's not a name. But now I'm hearing it again, like, maybe it's a name.
This is certainly the name of a Dutch company, but not a person's name. Gertrude Vreeland Tompkins was born October 16th, 1912 in Jersey City, New Jersey, to Laura and Vreeland Tompkins. So her dad named her after him. Dads who make their daughters take their weird kind of mannish name as their middle name. Why? Why would you do that?
Why would you ever do that?
Especially if you're Vreeland.
Do you hate your daughter that much?
Do you hate your daughter that much, or do you love yourself that much?
Why are they mutually exclusive?
Didn't really matter, because she usually went by the nickname Tommy. Her dad had been a chemist for John D. Rockefeller, who then went on to start his own company called Smooth On Inc. in 1895 that made iron cement, which you could use to repair holes and leaks in irons, and is still around today. The best I can tell from looking at them online is that they now make giant inflatable donuts.
That's pretty cool. 1895 was when he came up with that company. That's such a 1970s like roller disco
Smooth
afro
On.
name. Like you'd hear that
They
on Soul Train.
They rebranded in the 70s as a pomade company. It also worked on iron. He also had an unfortunate stutter, Vreeland. And just as unfortunate, that stutter was passed down to Gertrude,
Oh, no.
which became the bane of her existence. Like, it
imagine.
defined her life. She was teased mercilessly because of it by the other kids in her school. They made up a song about her. And it went a little something like this. Cue the guitar solo. Tom Morello.
Kids just had so much more time back then.
That's
to
what I was
sit
amazed
and
by.
compose a song to bully a girl, and they think bullying is bad now. They wrote a song about this girl.
And they couldn't do it on GarageBand. So here's how the song went. My name is little Gertrude and I am only 3. Some people say I stutter and no one cares for me. My mama used to stutter when she married Papa too. It took 3 days to marry because the preacher stuttered too. And this, of course, was sung with kids stuttering on most of the letters, which sounds not only not nice, but also not fun to sing. And also, it was her dad who had the stutter, not the mom, you idiots.
Yeah, do your research, George Gershwin.
That kid. This was the
That kid
first
grew
song.
up to be Weird Al Yankovic.
The next song he wrote, Rhapsody in Blue, but R.A.P., the third Gershwin brother, Weird Ira Gershwin. So because of this bullying, she eventually stopped trying to participate in class for fear of being made fun of, which led her to staying home from school, claiming she was sick, but really she was just
Crying.
being made. Yeah, she was just, it was not fun for her. And eventually she just wouldn't talk to people because she was ashamed of her stutter. So she just got swallowed by herself. Goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. She was not a confident person because that's important to the story.
I know what you're saying now about the sad sacks who listen to this podcast. I get it now.
Her family tried every crazy backwoods remedy they could think of to cure her stutter, and it got crazier and crazier. They put nutmeg under her tongue, which sounds pleasant. Then they made her take baths in the ocean. Not too bad, unless you're me. I would never do that. Then they started feeding her small amounts of arsenic and strychnine.
It sounds like old remedies, like you have 3 dice with words on them, and you roll the dice, and you're like, bathtub in, ocean. Okay.
Tea with dog meat.
Yep, that's the remedy to solve your stuttering.
Let's try 2 things that maybe could work. Didn't work. Let's poison her. This is like torture with, I mean, not that poisoning her isn't, but then they made her stay silent for a week. And then each week after that, speak only in a whisper that got progressively louder and louder until she was speaking at normal volume. And the idea was, then your stutter will be cured.
How?
Your tongue just needed to rest.
It turns out that you're so excited to talk that you developed a stutter that was hereditary that your dad has.
Slow down,
Just slow
Gertrude.
down, hit the brakes.
Obviously, none of it worked, and it's crazy she even survived this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Eventually, the family decided maybe it might just be better for her to go away. Like, maybe we're stressing her out, maybe we're putting too much pressure. They sent her to live with a family on a farm, which is what they told me happened to my sister. They sent her to live with a family on a farm in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia in the spring of 1930. It didn't cure her, and she didn't like it either, but she did feel more comfortable, and the stutter was a little less pronounced. And she
It was better because there's less people to hear her stutter.
less testing, less coronavirus cases. No people around, she doesn't stutter.
She doesn't stutter. Well, she doesn't say much because she's in another state now, but her stutter's gone.
I haven't heard her study since she left. Study.
She's
So
also not studying because she's crying 24/7.
maybe if we poison her textbooks. She was a little more comfortable, like less stifled from her family. She made a friend here. What she did get out of living there was an interest in horticulture. So after a year on the farm, she enrolled at the Pennsylvania School of Horticulture for Women in Ambler, Pennsylvania, where she made friends and became a supporter of FDR, who she looked up to as a beacon of hope, because if he could overcome his disability to become president, why couldn't she become anything other than...
Why couldn't she become the King's Speech or whatever?
Yeah, why,
Yeah.
why couldn't she she become king of England like FDR? After she graduated, she went and did something that only a rich white girl from the East Coast could do back then. Spent several years touring the great gardens of Europe with her aunt.
Yeah.
She went to England, Italy, France, Holland, Norway, Germany, all accompanied by her trusty aunt.
And her aunt was nice to her?
Yeah.
You didn't do research, did you?
Why should I research the aunt? I guess that was the way. Like, a woman can't travel alone in Europe. Take your aunt. The gardens were all well and good, but what she really was drawn to in her travels was the exact opposite of a garden. The destroyer of gardens. Goats.
Birds, oh.
Crows that are listening to us. She was described as being introduced to goats in Switzerland, so I don't know if she had never seen a goat before or just really liked these particular goats, but she became obsessed with goats.
Pretty funny.
That was her new thing. She now made it her purpose in life to travel the world promoting the benefits of having goats.
What sound do goats make?
Bah?
Okay.
Are you saying a goat stutters and she could relate to that?
Yeah.
I mean, they can't, unless they're trying to say baby or something.
Yeah, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, kind of people with stutters.
Wow. I mean,
I was just
boy.
trying to be like, why goats? Maybe she wants to hit stuff with her
As
head
someone,
really hard.
as someone who loves goats and eats a lot of trash, I see the appeal. So she went to South Africa. Like, she was traveling the world. She went to South Africa to tell people all the environmental and health benefits of goat milk, which ties into our intro. Our Australian people are going to like this. She went to the Australian government to convince them to invest in goats instead of cows because they were better for the environment, to which the Australian government said, that's not a knife. To which she responded, correct, you are. It's a goat. And now our New Zealand people are going to like this. She then went to New Zealand to do the same thing and apparently had an article written about her for no other reason I could tell than just being a tourist who really liked goats. It wasn't like she spoke to the government. It was just like, this lady's here from America and she really likes goats. She even brought some goats back to her parents' house in New Jersey and started selling their milk, but they kept escaping onto her neighbor's property and destroying her old passion gardens. So the city made her give up the goats, which was all well and good because around this time in the late 30s, the Depression was finally coming after her dad's iron glue donut factory or whatever, roller skate 70s disco factory. And there was no more money for her to be shuttling goats around the world in luxury, and she had to get a job at his company instead. And this was the last thing that she wanted, to be working not only in the job she didn't like, but for her dad, who she felt stifled by.
Yeah.
So stifled that she couldn't even live in the house with her family, and she moved to Greenwich Village in New York City instead. And here she met a whole new type of hairy mountain milk producer, a man, who was so mannish, his name was Henry Man Silver.
Whoa, Hank Man.
You'll notice her name doesn't have silver in it yet, but his does.
Ah, this is contagious.
She doesn't love this guy. Well, she liked him, but didn't love him. He was an accountant who owned her building, and they formed a bond over their love of history, gardens, and wouldn't you know it, he also used to stutter. So they bonded over all these things. Problem was, she still stuttered, and because of that, she felt undesirable, and she also didn't want to pass her problem down to her child. Her dad, what do you keep staring at? It
looks like a little hawk.
You're sitting on the chair like Fonzie, and you're looking off into the sunset.
I'm a pretty cool guy, but I'm listening to a woman who's about to marry a man who she's not that interested in, but they get along, and it's very sad that she feels like if she bears children, they'll have her problems. But I was looking at a hawk as you were doing all of that, and it felt really romantic, but you kind of ruined it. Scared him away with your shrill voice.
Thanks for dousing my heat. Like I said, her dad had it, she has it, and if she marries this guy,
it's guaranteed.
She felt it was guaranteed, but just a little bit of nutmeg and arsenic, clean that right up. On top of that, he was 10 years older than her, and she wasn't interested in him in that way, and she didn't want to be forced to become a housewife, which is what would have happened in 1919 Depression if you were a woman and you got married. So she wasn't ready to give up traveling, and she certainly wasn't ready to give up goats. She wasn't really interested in any man until sometime in late 1940 or early 1941. She was at a dance and met a boy named Stanley Michael Kolandorsky. So he was an American pilot who had volunteered to be in Eagle Squadron 71 of the Royal Air Force, along with a few other American pilots who wanted to help England fight Germany before the U.S. actually entered World War II. So he was like an assassin, if you will. A flying assassin, if you will.
He was a thug, a henchman.
He was also from New Jersey, and she actually fell in love with him, but she fell almost as equally in love with something he took her to do, flying an airplane.
Cool.
All signs point to her having taken her first flight ever with Stanley, and just like Amelia Earhart, she fell in love immediately. So now it looked like she finally met a guy who made her feel accepted and comfortable, and now they even had this new passion that they shared, but but the courtship was brief as he was called back to England to kill some more Germans, but they planned to reunite on his next return home.
Right.
There wasn't one. In May 1941, she learned that those Germans he had been trying to kill got to him first, and he was shot down over the ocean.
Yikes.
Gertrude stayed home from work for 2 weeks after this, trying to cope with this. She didn't have Stanley, the love of her life, anymore, but what she still had of him was his love of flying that he shared with her. So he decided that no longer was she going to cry, she was going to fly. Thank you.
Thank you. I know how to rhyme things. Thank you.
Thank you. I got a thesaurus.
Thank you. I took a class on lynda.com on rhyming.
I took a class on LydiaBeetlejuice.com.
Rhyming and the dangers of rap music.
Rhyming and how to do the calypso. There weren't many options for women pilots in those days, but her best bet was an organization called the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, or WASPs. This was a newly formed extension of the military for women pilots who would be taught to fly and then used as part of the training for the male pilots who would then be sent into battle. Their tasks were things like testing new airplanes, towing targets for anti-aircraft target practice, which sounds like the worst. Like, hold this apple while I shoot it.
I'm kind of good.
I know I'm just recruited, but I'm learning. They were also practice targets for searchlight crews, which is much less deadly, unless you blind them, I guess, and also teaching the new male recruits how to fly. So they received all the same training as their male counterparts, but they were meant to relieve the burden of day-to-day tasks and mission for the male pilots.
Okay.
These women would never be allowed to actually fight in battle. They were formed in 1942, and they even had a mascot of a female gremlin in flight gear named Fifi, designed by Walt Disney.
You're kidding.
For the Wasps.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It had mouse ears, though, and a little mouse face.
And instead of a plane, he made the plane look like a steamboat. They were called the Fly Girls, and over 25,000 women applied to join them. Only 1,834 were accepted, and Gertrude was one of them.
Wow.
On May 23rd...
Jennifer Lopez was a fly girl.
Jenny from the block? She was just missed the cutoff. The immortal Jennifer Lopez. On May 23rd, 1943, she reported for duty at Avenger Field in Sweetwater, Texas. I knew you'd like that.
I'm just going to talk about the Avengers for a while.
Can we talk about Kirk Douglas's son again? One of the first rules she had to learn, there is no wasps, was that all women were banned from flying during their periods. So Gertrude said, none of us ever had periods. They all just said, no, I don't do that.
I don't do that. My body doesn't do that.
I gave that up when I kind of joined the military. Of course, Gertrude being Gertrude, she felt apart from the others here as well, though. She was considerably older than all the other women and didn't like partying, so when she wasn't flying, she'd just be home alone studying planes. And it paid off because she was a smaller lady at 5'5", and usually the women that were this size couldn't handle certain planes as well because they physically weren't big enough. Gertrude got certified on every type of military plane there was.
Wow.
So she just, nothing stopped. She didn't want anything to stop her. She would learn how to fly everything.
Yeah.
She became an ace at all of them, but her stutter was still an issue. More so now because she was afraid it would prevent her from using the plane radio effectively when you have to communicate. She managed to control it, but it took a lot of work and often would sing what she had to say on the radio because when she sang, she wouldn't stutter, which is the King's Speech.
Yeah. Also, this is the era of Morse code. You can't just
Why would you go backwards from radio back to Morse code?
Because you clearly can't talk.
Wow. I mean, I'm not making fun of the victims.
I'm not making fun of her. I'm just saying you're like trying to figure out a system and you're scared about talking into the plane radio.
You want to take...
I got a crazy idea. Go backwards.
When you're flying an airplane, you want to take one hand off to...
You did it right now. You didn't take your hand off the microphone.
I'm not flying.
Oh, my God.
I'm flying this podcast, yes. She graduated November 13th, 1943. Of those 18,000, only 1,074 women made it through the program. Damn. After the academy, she was assigned to perform her tasks in Pico, Texas, and then Dallas, and this is where she first encountered a new type of fighter plane, the P-51 Mustang. So this was a high-octane plane that went really fast and was not that easy to handle, so you can't do Morse code. But Gertrude, also, don't you need a cable for Morse code?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Just tow the cable. Tow it all the way.
You don't need a cable. You can just make the taps, and someone has to read it and be like, oh, she's saying that she's going to land soon.
Wait, why doesn't she just scream?
She's going to land 3 minutes ago when I started taking this message.
Wait till we connect this wire, and then we'll get your transmission. It was not easy to handle, but Gertrude, of course, she mastered the Mustang and she was one of only 126 wasps that were deemed good enough to fly one of these.
Damn.
She loved the thrill of it so much and it made her so comfortable that suddenly she realized that her stutter had gone away and it never came back.
Wow.
From just the thrill and feeling like this is what I was meant to do. It just went away. She stopped it.
It's crazy that confidence and believing in yourself and reaching a certain level in your brain that you think that you are above the person you were before, how you can like eliminate certain problems.
Yeah, it's amazing that some people can do that. And all it took was, did I mention that the plane was made of nutmeg? So finally, Gertrude had some sort of grip on her life and a sense of self-worth and accomplishment, all thanks to flying and being part of the Wasps.
Yeah.
So of course that meant the Wasps had to be disbanded.
Obviously, like the Spice Girls, you're too powerful to live.
Too stuttery to die, too powerful to live. Spice Girls. It was 1944, and more of the male pilots were starting to end their tours of duty and coming home, which meant they needed jobs. So they felt these women who were doing a job they could do no longer should be doing that job.
Right.
So let's get rid of this program. Despite everything the Wasps did to help train the men who went to fight, they were never considered an actual part of the military. They were classified as civilian volunteers, and they got no military benefits. On top of that, they were about to be disbanded completely, and to make a stressful situation even worse, that guy Silver, who had been ingratiating himself to her dad back east, so her dad was also pressuring her
Right.
to settle down and marry him. So everyone's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you flying a plane
Yeah, why
when
are
you
you
could be
flying a
kissing a
plane?
man? Why are you flying a plane when you could be doing laundry?
You could be screaming for a kitchen. Do you want it over easy or scrambled?
Yeah. I hear you got over your stutter. That'll make it a lot easier to take dinner orders from your husband. To put even more pressure on a woman who clearly wasn't interested, Silver told her that his sister had just died and left behind an orphaned 1-year-old daughter, and that he wanted to marry Gertrude so they could adopt this little girl and Gertrude could raise her as her mom. Yeah. Being a woman, most times in history.
It was like
Not
being
fun.
a horse. You can carry all this, right?
Yeah, I want to help my little niece, but I can't. But,
But
I
you
could
can.
purchase you
After
from
you
your
marry
dad
me against your will, you can take care of this 1-year-old.
for the rest of your life,
Like-
which is not your life anymore.
The rest of the baby's life.
It's terrible. Her dad piled on here saying how much he liked Silver, and not so gently reminded her that she was now 32 years old, and it was about time she had a husband and a baby. Plus, this isn't a biological baby, so you wouldn't risk passing the stutter to anybody.
We found a loophole.
This is the perfect situation.
We're going to
for
use
you.
a loophole and strangle you to death with
Yeah,
it.
put your neck through this loophole.
Step off this chair.
This all made Gertrude feel just great about herself. She felt manipulated. She felt belittled. She was also just so happy flying airplanes. She was also kind of interested in this guy on the base as well. So she didn't give an immediate answer to Silver, but with the end of the Wasps coming up and all this pressure from her family, she just didn't know what else to do. So she agreed to marry Silver. Of course, women weren't allowed to be married in the Wasps, so she had to secretly take leave for a weekend and went to Long Island on September 22nd, 1944 to become Gertrude Tompkins Silver. She spent the night of September 21st, the night before her wedding, crying to her sister about how she didn't want to get married, which
great.
isn't that normal?
My wife did that.
I did that. What's the big deal? 3 days later, after the wedding, she was back at the base as if nothing happened, and the Wasps were set to disband 57 days from then. So she just got into a marriage she did not want. Her job that she loves is about to end. This is her situation. So now finally to the Los Angeles part of this story. The makers of the P-51 Mustang was North American Aviation, which were headquartered at Mines Field.
Okay.
Again, now LAX. And almost a third of all aircraft from that period were being made around there at the time. So Gertrude was often staying at the base in Long Beach, and when new planes would come off the line, she'd go up to Mines Field and fly them to wherever they needed her to go. So she was constantly flying in and out of LA. Apparently, she might have been flying planes to Alaska to give to Russia to help fight Germany.
Wow.
Now this takes us to that fateful day, October 26, 1944. A little over a month after she had unwillingly married, and a little under a month before the job she loved was about to be disbanded. The mission today was to fly some brand new P-51 Mustangs all the way to New Jersey, where they would then be taken to England for the invasion of Germany. This would have to be done over 3 days because women were not allowed to fly at night, I assume because of their periods.
Did you get like blood in your eyes or something? I don't know how periods work. I never asked.
Women can't see at night as well as men.
You must have like baby stuff in your eyes or something. I can't really explain. I'm not going to look into it, but I'm going to just, based on this hunch that is underdeveloped, I'm going to say that you probably can't fly at night.
Instead of doing this quicker, let's make it a 3-day dangerous journey. So now, obviously, these were all brand new, straight off the assembly line airplanes they were flying. So most of them had never been flown at all by the time they got to them, the Wasps. So when Gertrude and the 39 other women who were on the mission today showed up, it wasn't that out of the usual that 3 of the planes had some minor malfunctions found Gertrude's among them. One of the doors on top was kind of bent on hers, which would have prevented her from ejecting in case of emergency.
Right.
Imagine. The rest of the planes took off, but these three were told since they would be taking off after 3:18, they'd have to spend the night in Palm Springs instead of Arizona with the rest of them. Okay. So the repairs were finished, but now the weather was a little windy and some fog had moved in, but they took off anyway at 3:42 p.m. heading west. And as I said at the beginning, this was the last anyone ever saw of Gertrude Tompkins Silver. But here's the final insult to the meek lady that was Gertrude Tompkins Silver. Nobody even realized she was missing until all the other planes landed in New Jersey 3 days later. Jeez. And they asked, where's Gertrude? This is due to a crazy oversight and a lack of communication that happened before takeoff. First off, they had just switched to a new protocol for takeoffs, and most of the people still didn't have a good grasp on who reports what and who keeps track of what. So in this new system, for whatever reason, the weather was only recorded from Long Beach, even though the planes were taking off at LAX, which has completely different weather. Yeah. So that was the first miscommunication. The second was that somebody wrote down the wrong number for her plane and gave her the number of one of the other ones. So when the other plane arrived safely in New Jersey, they assumed she had checked in. The third was that the air control tower didn't have any of her flight papers for no other reason I could find them. They just didn't want them. They were like giving it to them like, I don't want this.
Why would I
I want this?
Is it what? It's going to turn up in a couple of days?
So the record of her even flying that day was completely lost, which is why she wasn't even reported missing until October 30th.
Jeez.
The other pilots she was with had all just assumed she had turned back and never taken off because of the mechanical issues, so they just didn't even bother to check when they got to Palm Springs and she wasn't there. So nobody knew where Gertrude was, and on October 31st, this is where it's spooky, Halloween, 1944, the search began. And it wasn't until 2 days after that that her family was notified that she was missing. The first obvious place to look was in the ocean just off of Mines Field, the most likely area being somewhere off of Dockweiler. Yeah. But the thing with an airplane like this is that it was so sleek and fast, it would cut straight through the water without leaving any sort of debris. Damn. And any oil or anything it did leave behind would have been washed away in the 5 days it took them to start actually looking. Yeah. So obviously nothing was found. Then the search was expanded, covering most of the Southwest all the way to Arizona. The search was put on by the Air Force, the Coast Guard, and the Civil Air Patrol, using 156 planes flying over 1,067 hours for 30 days. Toward the end of November, they saw what looked like a plane crash in the mountains above Palm Springs, and they sent in a search party only to find it was a rock that looked like an airplane.
Isn't it always? And that's a total Halloween goof right there. Like, oh, the silhouette of the werewolf is actually my
Shine
mascot
a flashlight
uniform.
On that, yeah. And they lifted it up, Candy. After this, they gave up the search, and she was officially presumed dead. No evidence of a crash was ever found. After this, the Air Force made flight plans required for every individual flying instead of just the group in general. But to this day, the search still hasn't ended. In 1997, a former teacher from Hawthorne High School named G. Pat Macha took up the search, and when other people heard of this, they came forward with stories that they might have actually seen what happened that day.
Wow.
Some people said they remembered seeing 2 planes going over the Imperial Highway, but not 3 of them. Like, how do you remember that? One guy said he was on, I guess there was like 2 airplanes in the whole country. One guy said he was on the pier that day and saw a plane, much like the
ghost plane.
Here's these Glendale sound effects that I'll never stop putting them down. He saw a plane make a sharp drop, sputter, and then go into a controlled dive behind the clouds. Another said he was 12 at the time fishing for halibut and saw a plane crash that day.
And you didn't tell anyone?
He's 12.
I saw a plane crash. Okay, dear. Sure. Whatever you say.
Yeah.
A plane.
I saw a Japanese submarine. Okay. It was headed towards Pearl Harbor. Yeah, right.
Okay, sure.
Again,
no more war stories before bed, okay? No more reading the news before bed, okay?
But it was so long ago, how could these people be sure? Like, how could you remember that?
I could remember anything if I think of it.
I can remember anything I make up. Macha got support in the 90s, and some sonar, archaeology, and diving teams, including the head sonar guy on the searches for Lacey Peterson, helped him look a few times all the way up to 2012. He searched the San Jacinto Mountains after some wreckage was spotted by a fire tower, but it was another missing plane. In 2001, their sonar found something in the Santa Monica Bay under the sand, but they never found anything except a 2001 reference that I won't bore you with that.
Little it up. Did you get that reference in
You
too?
blow it up, you monkeys that learn to evolve.
You well-dressed monkeys. You blow it up.
In 2009, they found an Air Force jet trainer that had been missing since 1955, but again, wasn't her. They keep finding all of these other missing planes. The problem is that at this point, so much of the plane would have deteriorated that it wouldn't even look like a plane anymore.
Yeah, it looked like a big rock.
It would, oh no!
Oh, I figured it out.
Petrified. Just that was the thing with the Mustangs. They turned to rock after 50 years. All that you would find would be guns and tires, and also that part of the bay was used as a silt deposit years later.
Yeah.
So it would be under that as well. So to this day, nothing concrete has ever been found. But it's not made of concrete, is it? The Wasps had a much lower crash percentage than their male counterparts. So only 38 were killed in the wartime, and Gertrude is the only one that isn't accounted for. She's
Damn.
the only question mark from the Wasps. Some people refer to her as the other Amelia, which again is so like the kids from the school ground gave her that nickname. The Wasps never got the recognition they deserved until 2010 when Barack Obama awarded the Congressional Gold Medal to the 300 surviving Wasps and granted them full veteran benefits.
Wow, good for him.
Which, I mean, they'll use it for the next 2 years. So what exactly did happen to Gertrude? Was it a simple mechanical failure that made her crash into the ocean? The P-51s were notoriously finicky and dangerous and did have a reputation of stalling at low altitudes when the nose was pulled up too quickly. Or maybe the fuel tank shifted her center of gravity behind the cockpit and threw her into a tailspin. Or maybe there was a break in the fog that the sun shined through unexpectedly and blinded her. But she was also an ace pilot who could handle a lot.
Yeah.
Some people have looked at the situation she was in with her husband she didn't love and the job she did love coming to an end and wondered if maybe it was a suicide, but her family insisted that she had so much respect for planes that she would never take one down with her. Like, she wouldn't go out that way. They had a better theory and wondered if maybe she faked her own death to get out of her new marriage and just disappeared to start a new life. For decades, a family joke was that whenever someone would go on a vacation, they'd say, be sure to look for Gertrude. What a joke.
It's how we grieve.
It's frustrating to not know what happened and what
Did you say it's spooky?
I would not. I said it's frustrating. I specifically said frustrating to not know what happened, and what seemed cut and dry at first started to make more sense when you thought about the alternatives. But one thing we do know for sure, I will never start drinking goat milk over cow milk. I'll never give up cow milk.
You're a problem.
I'm
You're
a child of the
person.
milk.
First of all, cows have personality. How dare you?
You don't kill them to drink their milk.
I get that, but you're still exploiting them.
Goats have personality too, Greg. And so do almonds.
Yeah, but they're not known for being eaten too.
Oh, they're being eaten. Speaking of which, I'm eating a goat bar right now.
Oh god, it looks so bad. I want some. I don't get the spooks from this one because she clearly was better off disappearing than going back to normal life. You nodded your head and you threw your bar at me in the air in my direction as recognition, like you raised a beer.
Let me say something. Cheers. Good for you, Gertrude.
You gotta get out of Dodge. I get it. I would do anything to get out of taking care of a 1-year-old, and so would Gertrude. On so many levels, that's sad.
I really should stop eating when I'm still telling my story. But,
yeah, for sure.
It's sad that she finally started to come to terms with herself. But again, like, the timing is pretty suspicious.
Yeah.
I don't blame her. She's probably living on Catalina Island right now, reaping all of those veteran retirement benefits
That
she
finally
got.
kicked in, yeah.
Now that she's 200 years old.
It's crazy that she got abducted by aliens, but, it's spooky.
It's crazy that she got abducted by all that fog.
Which is alien mist, and nobody talks about it.
All right, let's get into your next one while I munch on this loudly into the microphone. Hearing about all that goat milk made me so hungry.
On June 11th, 1998, at around 11:45 a.m., off-duty LA County Sheriff's Deputy Jonathan Aujay went for a hike in the Devil's Punch Bowl, and he never came back.
What is the devil? Hang on, cheers.
Cheers to your health bar.
What is the Devil's Punch Bowl exactly?
It's like a nature area in Antelope Valley that's mostly like rocks and granite.
But
and
why is it the Devil's Punch Bowl?
I have no idea. Didn't look into that. I saw a picture and it looked like the Devil's Molcajete. You know what I mean? It's just like rock.
Maybe the Devil's Champurrado, but I don't know.
Well, I was looking up like mysterious stuff that happened there, but as far as I could tell on a basic
Just
search,
this.
there's
Mysterious, not spooky. You weren't searching for spooky things that happened.
I didn't type spooky. I put mysterious. Yeah, it's a remote park in Antelope Valley on the north slope of the San Gabriel Mountains. By the time I'm recording this, it may or may not still be on fire. It was on fire recently. Devil's Punch Bowl is very Antelope Valley, very deserty and granite-y, good for long wilderness hikes. Jonathan Aujay frequently visited these trails as he was an avid hiker and outdoorsman. He was incredibly skilled in those regards, and he was not a wafy city boy like me. He was like a 6-foot-tall former paratrooper for the U.S. Army Special Forces unit.
He's more like me then.
Okay.
The only thing I have in common with that description of him is the word foot.
I have 6 feet. in a bag. I'm Ed Gein. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
To your health. To your health bar.
And you rub lotion on other people. He was a guy who rarely called in sick or took vacations. He worked the night shift as a sheriff's deputy because he knew that that's when the work would be harder to do. The tougher cases are on that shift, so he volunteered for it. He'd been in the department for 18 years and was part of the SEB, the Special Enforcement Bureau, which handles like SWAT and canine operations for the sheriff's deputy. So this is like a top-notch soldier, cop type
Soldier
guy.
of fortune.
All of this to say, walking for a hike into the Devil's Punch Bowl was a beyond easy task for him, and not coming back was impossible.
Maybe it's the kind of thing where like your immune system is so strong it's destroying your body because it's overreacting to this minor thing that.
And then you get like you bump into a cactus and you're literally dead in a second.
Yeah, I didn't plan for this.
The cactus is eating my body and bones, and no one will ever find me. At around 11:45 on June 11th, Jonathan Aujay parked his truck at the Devil's Punch Bowl and started his hike wearing a green backpack. On the day of his
Christopher Green backpack.
Christopher Greenback.
Christopher Green.
What did you say?
Christopher Green backpack. That's the person from the beginning. You know, the guy from Clue.
On the day of his disappearance and very early into his hike, Aujay encountered a class of children on a field trip. Now, he knew this class because he recently visited them with this canine, a dog named Bosco. Belgium...
Don't just glance over that. A dog named Bosco? Tell me more.
Bosco Boomhauer. They were all happy to see him, and Aujay told the kids that he was going 20 miles off the Mount Baden-Powell. It's a summit. It has a height of 9,400 feet. He's going to be back around about sunset. That's what he told the class or the teacher or whatever.
9,000 feet? I know that we always get elevations wrong,
yeah.
But that sounds pretty tall.
It sounds pretty tall for an Antelope Valley.
We might be getting this wrong. I think that's the biggest mountain in the world.
I might be getting this wrong. I think that breaks through the atmosphere and it climbs into space. I might be getting it wrong.
Wait a minute. He climbed to the moon?
He's a mailman for the moon every day. 2 employees of a camp saw a man who fit his description jogging in the direction of Mount Baden-Powell. At 6 that evening, another camp employee saw a man with a green backpack heading towards the parking lot. So people see him going up, the employees of the grounds. A person possibly saw him coming back, right? Around 6 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Not long after that sighting, another person told a park employee that they'd heard a single gunshot coming from the punch bowl. So by 11 o'clock, his wife Deborah called it in, telling the Palmdale Sheriff's Station that her husband was missing, and they sent a pair of deputies out to the scene, which is kind of weird because I don't know if it's a missing person or not, but isn't there like a 24-hour waiting period for stuff like that? But anyways, maybe because he did it.
Yeah, not if you're a cop.
Not if you're also a cop. Yeah, they get special privileges. They're just more missing. You know what I mean?
You have to wait 24 hours because they're busy that 24 hours looking for lost cops.
They immediately flagged his truck as a crime scene and did not touch it. And they called in a search and rescue crew who were already looking for him by 11:30, half hour later. So that's 6 hours since he was potentially last spotted. The search and rescue teams were joined by the sheriff's emergency crew, the K9 unit, and 3 more search and rescue teams. Everyone had this confidence in Jonathan that he would pop out, maybe injured or dehydrated, but everyone who knew him attested to the fact that they don't think that he would have succumbed to the elements, right? Like, not that soon.
Speaking of which, I just got bit by a mosquito.
You're like a soldier, huh? You're like
I'm keeping it together.
You're that type of man, you know, that they just don't make anymore, you know? You're just one of those guys.
The type of man they discontinued.
After 24 hours, though, it was starting to look like he wasn't going to be coming out of the mountains on his own. The searches continued for days, and they included more search and rescue teams from Malibu and an Air Force base. An Army Black Hawk helicopter scanned the entire area, along with Lamer helicopters looking for him. Horses, ATVs.
The Seagull, Sparrow helicopters.
It was funny that when I was reading about all the stuff, they're like, Black Hawk helicopters,
whirly birds,
jets, smaller jets. People were there using thermal imaging equipment and fair technology, looking for the grounds and any heat, like the way Predator looks for stuff.
The ultimate soldier of fortune.
Searchers were airlifted to mountaintops and ridges. Others scoured crevices and mines. Vicky DeVita, who's a close friend of Aujay's, said that he told her he had planned on going on an overnight walkabout, so she and another deputy spent the night looking for him.
Is this the sort of thing he would do?
I think that this was the kind of dude that he was. He was like an outdoors type, very skilled. He would go on hikes a lot. I don't know if he had a reputation of going on night walkabouts or just talked about it, but he was the type of dude that when he said he would, people would oh wait, we better look. He did obviously would. He's not like a chicken. He's a woodsman. But they found nothing. After a week of looking, they opened up his truck and drove it back to his residence. Then the theory started. Some of his friends said he might have been working on a covert mission for the military. Some suspected he ran off to Alaska, where he always said he wanted to sneak off to. His sister Jan is convinced he planned to disappear, that he was cunning enough to stash cash and get a new identity and just vanish. This is her theory because she knew that Jonathan was unhappy living in Antelope Valley. He actually wanted to live the Northern California wilderness. He said the last time she spoke with him, he was incredibly unhappy and he was ready to go. He was checked out. Jonathan and his wife were discussing divorce, and like Jean Spangler, Aujay also had a 5-year-old daughter, Chloe. Jonathan and his wife met when they were in high school and they were married for 12 years, but a month before he disappeared, he was ready to leave. The morning he left, he told Deborah, "Have a nice life. Tell Chloe I love her."
All of these, actually, all the stories we're covering have in common bad marriage.
Yeah. Like a month before he disappeared, him and his wife got in a heated argument, and he held a loaded gun to his temple as he was driving. People said he started giving away some of his personal items. It was also becoming clear to people that his friend who searched for him through the night, Vicky DeVita, was more than just his friend.
Like a best friend?
Like a super best friend that he may have kissed.
Who hasn't kissed their best friend? Oh, no. I knew I was forgetting something.
Oh, geez. With situations like these, it's a lot to think about in retrospect. Like, you don't really think about it at the time, but now he's missing for a week, and you start putting all these things that you know about him together.
Yeah, everything looks like a possible explanation.
Exactly, when someone's been missing for a week. Was he planning on leaving his life in Antelope Valley, or was he planning on leaving life on the whole? The stronger theory with missing cases like these are suicide, that somebody would wander into the wilderness and kill themselves. After the 5-day search, the Sheriff Deputy's Missing Persons Bureau concluded that he had committed suicide, but there was no body.
Yeah, why? I mean, it's one thing to go out into the wilderness and kill yourself, but why would you make it so hard to find your body?
Yeah.
What good does that do?
I don't know how you don't find a body, you have all these conclusions, and you just call it a suicide. Or is there something else at play here? Was he murdered?
If you bring up aliens.
As if an expert outdoorsman going completely missing into the wilderness isn't spooky enough, here are 2 theories.
Oh, here we go. Spooky Mulder's back.
It's gotta be Bigfoot. It's gotta be Bigfoot.
Hear me out, ESP. Mulder, that's impossible. I'm the Scully today.
You are Scully. What's it like?
It feels very logical.
We could be looking at an alien and you'd be like, Mulder, you always do this. It's just a reflection of the light against the surface. She's covered in like green blood. One theory was that he was killed by a fellow deputy after stumbling upon a meth lab. Now, there are rumors around Antelope Valley that deputies were giving a heads-up call to meth dealers and makers about drug busts. Through the decade, there were 5 internal investigations into this, and 35 deputies were found to be stealing millions of dollars from drug dealers.
That's why.
FBI had even captured a sergeant and 2 narc detectives who were taking $30,000 from a drug dealer. Now, there's a guy, Darren Hager. He's a deputy from the LA Sheriff's Department. He was fired for looking too closely into Aujay's disappearance. A year after his disappearance, Hager arrested a man who offered to become an informant against some meth makers and distributors in the area. On top of informing on that, he gave up a name based simply on a rumor of a deputy that was involved in that killing. So separate from Darren Hager, some sheriff deputies started to hear word from biker gangs, their informants, that Aujay stumbled on a meth lab and was killed. 2 years later, in 2000, a sheriff's deputy homicide detective conducted a 3-month investigation and found that another deputy was involved in the drug trade, and this guy was suspected of murdering Aujay. But the homicide captain didn't permit a search warrant and took that detective off the case. Now, I don't know the names of the suspected deputies or if it's all the same guy we're talking about. I don't know that stuff. That same year, Hager was part of a DEA task force for the LASD, and he was told by a then assistant sheriff that he was to investigate the narcotics for the DEA, and if any information came up about Aujay or any corrupt deputies, that he was to document it but not investigate it. So write down what you know, but don't look into it. That info was to be handed over to the homicide department of the LASD. So he did that, and after he sent over the documents and info related to that stuff, he was subject to a 11th month investigation by Internal Affairs, and then he lost his job. So he thinks that was a retaliation against the sheriff's department, I guess. I don't really... That one I can't follow because he was working through the sheriff's department with the DEA, so I couldn't tell if the sheriff's deputies were firing him in retaliation for working with the DEA or the opposite way. Anyways, he was fired for looking into the Aujay case. He was later rewarded money when he sued them, but no information about corrupt deputies or Aujay came to light. So the 2-year-long undercover meth bust operation is known as Operation Silent Thunder. That was a success, but from that, no clues were made about the vanishing of Aujay. The other thing is something I've been very interested in for some years now: missing 411 cases.
Oh boy!
So if you don't know,
Greg's creepypasta sources online.
If you're not aware, David Paulides is a former cop and now the foremost investigator into missing 411 cases, which cover mysterious disappearances in wilderness areas under unusual but patterned circumstances.
Unusual, not spooky. spooky, though.
Spooky. Oh my God. You haven't even seen the 2 documentaries about it, have you? This is a thing that happens throughout the country, but most notably in national park areas. Yosemite maybe being the highest in missing 411 cases. When I talk about unusual pattern circumstances, dogs unable to track scents, the time, which is late afternoon, victims, when they are found, their clothing and footwear are removed. If bodies are found, they are found in previously searched areas, sometimes just off the trail. The missing persons are often experienced outdoors people. Politis disqualifies cases if there's any sense of foul play. Like if it looks like an animal attack or a murder or a suicide, he won't investigate it. Politis
Won't investigate
Yeah,
it?
he won't, because he's...
So he'll only investigate fake things?
He'll only investigate mysterious disappearances in national park areas where there's no explanation for... Okay? Spooky. It's spooky.
No, look, this guy is not Mulder. He's the paranoid guys Mulder goes to.
His 3 friends, the
Yeah.
smoking gunmen.
The smoking man is his own guy.
Oh, you're right. What are these called?
They
They had
have
their
a-
spin-off show for a while, and you have to watch
Did
that.
they?
Yeah.
Oh,
For like
well.
a season. I was so
Well,
excited.
once I get through the next 14 seasons of the X-Files, I'll go on to that.
I wanted to like it so bad, and I didn't, and I was sad.
The Spooky Boys.
The Spooky Boys. Politis is convinced, though, that this is a missing 401 case. Otherwise, we'd have a body. His whole thing with missing 401 is that he doesn't give you a conclusion. He's not like it's aliens or it's Bigfoot. He just gives you the information and lets you come to your own conclusion. Problem
But
with
the
Politis...
first letter of every sentence spells out Bigfoot.
Yeah. The thing with him, though, I didn't know until I looked up into this case, was that before he did this, he was a Bigfoot hunter. And I thought he had so much credibility for being a former cop, but he leaves out the part where he used to hunt Bigfoot.
He was a Bigfoot cop.
Yeah. But missing 401, he could have just slipped into an area that is no longer visible to us, which is how cryptids come in and out of our existence.
God. See, you made it spooky.
I
This
didn't
was
make it
all.
spoo-
This was all a Halloween episode, and you made it. You came in here and made it spooky.
I
Our
typed in-
Halloween episode.
I typed in missing 401 Los Angeles. Jonathan Aujay's name came up. I said, I'm going to look into that. And then I found a meth lab by accident. All right. So I went into this looking for spooky. I found spooky.
By the way,
and then I found a meth lab,
you're
which is
making
really
me now want to watch not only the X-Files, but Breaking Bad also.
spooky. What if a crossover between the two?
What if, now hear me out, Boomhauer's selling meth, but Ursula is an FBI agent. Ursula Buffet.
Today, news hasn't gotten any better for his family. His wife, Deborah, has been living out of a car for 2 years with her dog. And just this March of 2020, his daughter, Chloe, died. They were never able to get closure on Jonathan's disappearance.
Why did she die?
I couldn't figure that out. I found a bunch of obituaries, but obituaries don't say how someone dies. It just
They
says,
don't?
Maybe it wasn't obituaries. Maybe it was like memorials from family members. A lot of kind words, but no information. But yeah, he went into Devil's Punch Bowl and never came out.
The wilderness is so big, it's so easy to get lost,
If you go off trail,
which is why they tell you don't go off the trail.
But I think that 1998 to 2000, that's what, 20 years? No.
Yeah, 1998 to 2000, that was about 20 years. 2020, you're saying?
Oh, yeah,
2020?
you're right.
22 years.
Am I doing my math right? The other day I saw something was made in 1984 and I couldn't figure out how old it was. I couldn't figure out how many years had passed, and then I thought I was born in
That
1984.
thing must be really old.
That must be ancient. What's that, like 20 years?
What's that like? He had just turned 16?
I'm convinced that you find something.
Yeah, that is, I mean,
Like nobody just like no bone. Like animals don't eat bones. You find something.
Bosco the dog, give a dog a bone. But I mean, if you're consistently searching, you would see like, oh, there's vultures or something over this spot. I don't know. I have no idea how search and rescue works, but also I can understand just disappearing in the wilderness.
I've never been to Devil's Punch Bowl, so I'm always like if you say, oh, a person went missing in Yosemite, I would think, yeah, that would be hard because you can't helicopter over it.
Yeah,
because there's trees.
Right.
Also, like if you stand out and you just look, there's all these trees and bushes in your way.
But
And
Devil's Punch Bowl is sort of an open space.
it's more open. There's
But
not
then
all-
if it's an open space, you see the meth lab. Unless it's some like a lost situation where
Yeah.
there's a hatch and
or maybe you just like slip into this like area where
There we
let's
go.
say,
So
like,
hang on.
a pocket.
I'm with the FBI. Hang on.
Let's just say that there's pockets out there.
Let's just say that the pocket is out there and leave it at that.
If you go to certain untouched areas, let's say a Mothman might come in and out of, and let's say sometimes someone might walk into it not knowing it and can't get back to this area. I'm not going to say dimensions, okay? I'm not going to say portals.
I'm keeping this scientific. I'm
Yeah.
not going to use the word dimension.
I'm going to be very vague.
Just to use dementia, which is what you have. Let's get to the last one here. This is a big one. I didn't know about it until a few years ago. Did you know about these?
No, I thought that you were talking about the family they end up finding in the desert, but it's not them.
Let's do it. Just like last time, I'm going to start with the incident and then kick it off with my witticisms. Again, this one took place in October, October 13th, 1982. A resident of Northridge noticed that her neighbor's pool pool was overflowing, so she went to tell them, but nobody was home. Eventually, the police were called, but when they went inside the house to check on them, nobody was in there. A husband, wife, and 2 kids were gone, with no forced entry, nothing stolen, nothing broken, except for a couple pieces of carpet that were ripped up and some blood stains.
Jesus.
This family was never seen again. Salomon? I hardly knew him in.
Jesus Christ. You didn't need to. Like, you don't always need to. You know that, right?
Look, I don't want to get to X-Files, but we are being manipulated by some dark forces, and I'm
The
required
dark
to do
forces
that.
are just like gas in the air. They mess with your brain,
they're just-
and they make you think you're hearing things.
It's just
Mulder.
gas in the apartment. I'm Scully. I'm the little hottie.
Who only gets better with age. That's me.
Yeah, you're Mulder, who did not get better with age. So this is the story of the disappearance of the Salomon family, not the McStays. So let's start when Saul Salomon met a woman named Elaine at a bar in Hollywood in 1971. He had come to LA a year before that from Israel, as had she, and not long after they started dating, they moved into a condo in Reseda, and then they were married. As it goes, first comes love, then comes marriage,
Reseda.
then comes a condo in Reseda. He drove taxis and sold encyclopedias.
That's a very 80s job.
I know. No, this is the 70s.
Oh.
So he drove taxis, sold encyclopedias, and she had a daughter from a previous marriage, but they all moved into a house together in Northridge. So this is what's weird, because we went to this house because I wanted to see it just a week ago.
You wanted to do the thing that Jake Gyllenhaal does at the end of Zodiac, or you want to walk the beat and look?
I needed to know. But here's the weird thing. This house is at 19232 Lassen, which is right across from Nobel Middle School, the middle school I went to, and more specifically, right across the street from my homeroom. So as it turns out, I was probably staring at this house through the open door of homeroom for years, and I had no idea. Something just calling me.
I have that with the apartment where Marion Parker was killed.
Yeah, you loved that building, and then
Yeah.
you found out. It's very upsetting when you find out these things. Now it's the late 70s, and I'm in middle school. I just bought a tech deck.
And I'm super innocent of all crimes.
I was in homeroom at the time. So Saul was now 35 years old and owned the Apollo Fire Extinguishers Company, which refilled fire extinguishers. Elaine was a stay-at-home mom who also volunteered as a counselor at a local clinic. Her daughter, Michelle, was 15 and had graduated from Nobel and was going to Granada High School and hung out at the Northridge Mall, as any good Valley child is required to do. And they also had a son named Mitchell, who was doing great at being 9 years old.
Good job, Mitch.
Way to go, Mitch. The family seemed pretty happy, and they had a nice house, as any kid in my homeroom could tell you. And they seemed to be all set with money, and they had a lot of nice cars. But there was also a family friend, and his name was Harvey Rader.
That's a bad guy's name. Like Dexter Banner's a hero's name. Harvey
Harvey
Rader
Rader.
is a
This
bad
is Dexter
guy's name.
Banner's arch nemesis.
Yeah.
He looked like John Belushi.
Also looks like a bad guy.
I think we found our criminal. And had come to the Valley from England in 1978 and now owned Mr. Motors of London, car dealership and repair shop in Reseda. The two addresses were 7347 and 7528 Reseda Boulevard, where the showroom and the repair shop were, which are still, I think, showrooms and repair shops. To make this story even more about me, Rader himself lived in Granada Hills at either 17545 Orna Drive or 12320 Lithuania Drive. Again, about me. That's where my family's from. Now, Saul got into a sort of business arrangement with Rader, where Saul would go to used luxury car auctions, and then Rader would fix up the cars he bought and then sell them, and they would split the profits.
Okay.
So this takes us to October 12th, 1982, the night of the incident, whatever might have happened. According to Rader, he and Saul were going to a car auction in Rosemead, so Saul left home at 6 p.m. in his van to meet Rader at Mr. Motors to go to the auction. After it was over, Saul asked Rader to drop him off at an Israeli restaurant on Ventura Boulevard and gave him the keys to his van to drive back to his house for him from the dealership, where he could drop off the keys with his wife and then get the keys from her to his Mercedes, which needed to be repaired at Rader's shop. So it was just, I don't know how he planned to get home, but
Yeah, that's like you're on the island with the fox and a head of lettuce.
yeah, if you pick up 2 pairs of keys, then the one car breaks down. I don't get it. Oh, you kill the fox. You make the fox disappear. At around 11:30 p.m. that night, Elaine, the wife, was on the phone with her friend when a knock was heard, and she said, "Harvey is at the door." And then she hung up. Like I said, that's the moment. That's the moment.
That's the moment. Harvey's
where
at the door.
That was the last anyone ever heard of them. Like I said, the next day, the neighbor in the cul-de-sac behind them noticed that their pool was overflowing. When they went over to tell them, nobody was home, so they called the police, who looked around the outside, and in the infinite expertise of the police, they said everything seems fine here.
Jesus.
Other than the water going into their pool, and their Cocker Spaniel Mish Mish was left in the backyard.
Oh my God.
That beats Bosco for dog names.
Put them in a pit together. Let's find out who wins. You know what they call that? Huh?
A Michael
Scully?
Vick special. Yeah, I call that science. The friends insisted something was wrong and convinced the police to go inside, but what was inside was just as ordinary. Nothing was stolen, nothing was broken, and the doors were locked. The only thing that seemed strange was that the alarm wasn't on, but as they looked a little bit closer, like I said, there were some blood stains in the daughter's room on the mattress and the walls, with some pieces of the carpet they had been cut out and covered up with a bathroom rug. What's more, they noticed the daughter's bed was broken a little bit, and there were some bed sheets missing.
Jeez.
Obviously something was wrong here, so they contacted the family of the Salomons in the area, and Elaine's cousin came right over and noticed that everything just seemed too perfect. Even the master bed was made. But wait, Elaine never made the bed, so she would never have done that.
Yeah.
What was even stranger was that while the cousin was there, the phone rang. It was Rader. She asked him, they're missing, do you know where they were? And his best guess was that they probably went on vacation. But that couldn't be, because they would have told them, and also their bags were all still there. And then things got really weird when he asked her if she knew where the guns were. And she said, what guns? And he said, never mind.
I think we have a suspect.
John Belushi in the lineup. One day after this, Rader was questioned by the police, who found Saul's Mercedes in the Mr. Motor garage, which Rader explained was there for repairs. But then they also noticed he had scratches all over his hands, which he also explained were from doing the repairs on the car. Your dad was a mechanic.
He never came home with scratches.
But did he do Mercedeses?
Oh, that's the problem
scratchiest
there.
of
Yeah,
cars.
no, the
They're
scratches
so
you get from
itchy.
working on Mercedes.
It's that German itchy engineering. So then just 3 days later, on the 17th, a Caltrans worker was working along the Antelope Valley Freeway. He found passports, wallets, and photos belonging to the Salomon family, and it became very clear that something was very wrong, and everything we knew about the Salomon family and Rader got turned upside down. To start, there was more to Rader than it seemed, of course. When he came to the United States, he had said on his application that he had no criminal record. As it turns out, he had actually been convicted of crimes 13 times for things like breaking and entering, armed robberies, including shooting a delivery man, and he had been in prison 9 times in England. Then when he first came to LA, he lived with a friend who was the chauffeur for the Sheikh Mohammed Al Fassi of the Saudi royal family, which I kept reading in my notes as Shrek Mohammed Al Fassi, which is the new entry into the Shrekiverse.
The reboot?
It translates better overseas. This sheik lived in Beverly Hills, whose house mysteriously burned down on New Year's Eve 1980.
Whoa.
With several valuable things mysteriously missing from the rubble. Police suspected Rader and his friend of robbing the place and then setting the fire to cover it up, but Rader was granted immunity from this for testifying against his own friend. Meanwhile, the Salomon family were no babes in the woods either. To start, their marriage wasn't as stable as it seemed. Allegedly, Saul was constantly cheating on Elaine with prostitutes, going to strip clubs on your favorite Sepulveda Boulevard.
Woo!
You say it. It's your favorite. It's your favorite. And Elaine...
I'm wooing Sepulveda. I'm not wooing strip clubs. I don't go to them.
I don't go to them. I just own them. I've got the beliefs of Spooky Mulder and the business inclinations of Mr. Gabagool himself, Tony Soprano. So Elaine, it turned out, was also having an affair on him. So they were just cheating on each other.
Yeah.
But that was the least of it. There were allegations that Saul was actually involved in the Israeli mafia, which had come under the scrutiny of the LAPD in 1979 when they killed and dismembered a couple in the Bonaventure Hotel after a cocaine deal went bad and scattered their body parts all over the San Fernando Valley.
Oh my God.
Supposedly, Saul's role in the mafia was making and transporting silencers in his work vans, and was also in possession of several Uzis, which adds up when you think about that call Rader had made to the house the day after they disappeared. And also a friend of the daughter's who lived down the street said that one day her dad had come home after visiting Saul and was freaked out because Saul showed him a display of illegal guns in his house. And this little girl actually was supposed to have been sleeping over on the night of the disappearance, but for some reason she decided to cancel. That's your spooky part.
That's spooky.
They're spooky. Just a couple years ago, she wrote this really good article in LA Magazine about her lifelong struggle to try to cope with what happened to her friend. Other than the guns, Saul also owned some apartments in Van Nuys that he used in some sort of insurance scam, and apparently they had stacks of cash hidden behind picture frames in the house just in case. But still, this was all circumstantial and hearsay and didn't really amount to much, but the obvious suspect here was John Belushi,
Yeah.
Rader. But of course, he swore he had nothing to do with this, and his house was searched, but nothing suspicious at all was found. But the more they looked at it, the less Rader's timeline of that day made any sense at all. To start, he said Saul met him at Mr. Motors around 6 to go to the auction that night, but the auction had ended at 5 p.m. in Rosemead. Then he said he dropped Saul off at a restaurant afterwards, but as it turns out, that restaurant wasn't open that day. Then he said, here's the third strike, that when he dropped off the van at the house afterwards and taken the Mercedes for repairs, he got the keys out of the mailbox and never went to the door. But you remember, Elaine's friend was on the phone when she said Rader is at the door.
Yeah.
So not a single part of his version of the story that day added up. But again, there was no concrete evidence anywhere. There wasn't any blood in the Mr. Motors.
Show me the body.
Habeas corpus.
Show me the body.
Show me the body. There wasn't any blood in the Mr. Motors office or anything like that. There was nothing. By all logic, the Salomon family had just disappeared into thin air, and the police couldn't do anything for a whole year.
Jeez.
But then Rader's cousin got involved. A man named Ashley Paul, Rader's cousin, had been in LA during all this, but had moved back to England shortly after. But about a year after the disappearance, he started talking to Scotland Yard for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if he was afraid the LAPD would eventually come to him, or if Scotland Yard would extradite him to the LAPD, or as Paul himself claimed, he said the Israeli mafia was threatening him revenge for Saul's death. But whatever the reason, he was now offering information about the incident to the authorities in exchange for immunity and protection. At first, he said he wasn't involved, but he knew what happened. But then his story changed to say that Rader did in fact kill them, and he helped his cousin move the bodies.
Wow.
The LAPD, of course, wanted to talk to him, so some detectives, the lead detective on this case was named Larry Bird. You should know that going forward.
I don't want to spring this on you later. The detective's name is Larry
I don't mean
Bird.
to kill the mood, but Larry Bird got involved, and it was a slam dunk case.
I hope you know that in my head it's now cast as Larry Bird. Detective Larry Bird.
We'll talk about the casting for this later. Some detectives went, Larry Bird included, went all the way to England. He went all the way from downtown to England to convince him to come back to testify, and promised he would have immunity if he did so. In October 1983, he did, and this is what he said happened. Also, I didn't know that the LAPD detectives go international.
To solve an LA crime, I imagine they would.
I guess so, but like it just feels weird. Like they should be bound by the city limits.
They shouldn't have European vacations where they also investigate crimes.
American detectives, European vacation.
Detective European vacation.
This is Larry Bird on the Tower Bridge.
Slam dunk, Larry Bird.
This is what the cousin said. A while before the disappearance, Saul had given Rader a $20,000 loan for his car dealership, but Rader had never repaid it, so Saul was pissed off. Then on the evening of October 12, 1982, Saul stormed into the dealership and went into Rader's office, and in front of Paul, another car dealer named Gerald Baxter, and two unnamed Italian men demanded the money from Rader, to which Rader responded by shooting Saul in the head in front of all of these witnesses.
Jesus.
Rader then put the body in the trunk of a Rolls Royce and told Paul to drive him and the two Italians in Saul's van to Saul's house, where everybody but Paul went inside and proceeded. Here, a little bit of a trigger warning here. They went into the house, smashed the wife's skull against their marble bar top.
Wow.
They then beat the son to death with a baseball bat and strangled the daughter to death.
Jesus.
He said Rader did this because they were the last ones to see Saul and knew he was going to Mr. Motors to talk to him about the money, so he didn't want any evidence linking him to this. This all took 15 minutes, after which the three men came out, gave Paul the keys to Saul's Mercedes, told him to pop the trunk, and then went back into the house. They then came out with three large figures wrapped up in bed sheets and put them in the trunk, and then went back in again. This time they came out with a trash bag full of stuff that Paul happened to see included a receipt for something that cost several hundreds of dollars, or maybe it was several thousands. Actually, I think it might have been $20,000, the amount that Saul had given to Rader. They left the house, and the next night Rader made Paul drive him and the Italians to the desert near Acton to bury the bodies, and the job was done. Not long after this confession, Rader was arrested by the LAPD, but Paul remembered where the bodies were, so they needed to find them in order to convict Rader. Habeas corpus! So on November 14th, Paul led the police to the area he said the bodies were found, and they found nothing.
Jeez.
They then went to the spot where Paul said they buried the sheets they used to wrap the bodies, and dug up some sheets that a family member did later confirm belonged to the Salomons. But there was actually even more to the story than anybody actually suspected. You see, the Salomons weren't the only missing people in connection to Rader. No. there was another. Actually, a couple others. A couple named Peter and Joan Davis had also disappeared mysteriously on March 17th the same year the Salomons did. When the police were finally called to their house to investigate, their sliding glass door was open and their dinner was still on the stove, but their luggage, pet dog, I don't know that dog's name, and a very valuable painting by Thomas Gainsborough were missing. Oh, and also Peter and Joan themselves were missing. The only clues they had was their Thunderbird was found parked in a lot at LAX, and some words that Joan had told their son a few weeks earlier that if they ever disappeared, to go to her safety deposit box right away. So this is two families that disappeared within a few months of each other in the same general quiet part of the valley.
Yeah.
But again, let's look a little bit deeper. Peter was an art dealer, but wouldn't you know it, he was also British. He was also British. And he also lived in Granada Hills, and you'd never believe it. He lived right next door to Paul, the cousin. And boy, the coincidences just keep on coming. Davis happened to have organized crime connections and also sold stolen art. Strangely enough, that Gainsborough painting they had in their home, turns out it had been stolen a decade earlier in Cheshire, England. Here's another coincidence. Davis also sold classic cars, and cousin Paul happened to be one of his salesmen and one of his business partners in the car world, Harvey Rader.
Jeez.
Cousin Paul divulged the truth of what happened to the Davises as well. He said Rader wanted that painting the Davises had, so he wanted his cousin to help set them up for a robbery to get them arrested, and then he'd take the painting, but the cousin refused. Rader then asked his cousin to come with him to the Davis house to test out a Corvette he was thinking of buying. So they drove around a little, the three of them, and then when they got back into Davis's garage, Rader wanted to show Davis something in the engine, so he took him over and told Paul to rev the engine, and right when he did it, he shot Davis in the head. Paul then ran out of the garage past Davis's wife, who was just coming home, and the next day Rader made him help bury the bodies. Back in 1983, the day after the search in the desert for the Salomons, Paul then led the cops to try to find the Davises, but he said it had been such a rainy night he couldn't remember exactly where they were, other than it was somewhere past Magic Mountain. But guess what? It didn't end there either. No, there was yet another. A couple months before the Davis incident in January 1982, a businessman named Ronald Joseph Adib from Burbank told his family he was going to see a man about a car in, you guessed it, Reseda. And he was never seen again, other than his car was found parked once again in a lot at LAX. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out Adib was an investor in Rader's company.
Oh my God.
Paul had no idea where this body was, but he insisted Rader had also murdered him. So this is now 7 missing persons, all linked to Rader, and all the stories made sense. Paul said that this was Rader's pattern. He'd scam people like this out of their money or belongings, and then he'd kill them when they started questioning it. But if that were the case, how come everywhere cousin Paul, the man who was supposedly there for all of this, sent them to find the bodies, no body was ever found?
Yeah.
Or suddenly he had forgotten or didn't know where the body was. On top of that, the spot where he claimed the Salomons were buried was a pretty regularly visited area. So in that whole year since they had gone missing, it's pretty unlikely nobody would have seen something.
Yeah.
Like there would be like a hand, like something would be there. The cops decided to give Paul a lie detector test just to be safe. They gave him 4 lie detector tests. He failed every single one of them. So everything I just told you might not have happened. Now they were back to square nothing. They had nothing to go on. They had no bodies. They still had no evidence. And now the witness and motive they thought was a lock all turned out to be unreliable, and it might have been a lie.
I don't trust lie detector test results though, so I'm still on Paul's side.
I'm still on the guy who probably helped kill him side. The man he said was in the office when Saul was shot wasn't actually there, and there actually were never any nameless Italians. He admitted, I made that all up. So there's your there's your reliable witness. So again, nobody knew what happened to the Salomons or the Davises or Adib for that matter. On November 21st, 1983, they were forced to release Rader from custody due to lack of evidence, but the next day they figured maybe we can't get Rader, but this cousin just admitted to aiding in a murder, so let's charge him at the very least. 2 problems. First off, he just failed 4 lie detector tests, so did any of this happen? Second, he had been promised immunity for anything he told them. They tried to revoke this due to some confusion between the terms transactional and use immunity in his contract, but the court said they couldn't because of this terminology, which they claimed the police were using to mislead Paul. Side note, Paul's lawyer here, the woman who would go on to defend Eric Menendez.
Oh my God. The one who coddled them?
She's got a great track record. The whole thing got very confusing, but here's how the cards lay after this. Rader was free, cousin Paul was free and ran back to England never to return. All those people were missing and there was no evidence anywhere, and this whole story and the testimony got sealed in a secret court document for 5 years. So that's what happened after. It was a debacle. It was a disaster. The case was ice cold and nobody knew what happened. The relatives of the Salomon family were disgusted. They felt the police had completely bungled the whole thing and acted like buffoons. They said that one of the cops was eating food out of the pantry in the house while it was an active crime scene.
Great.
Can I dip this in this red stuff on the wall? They said the cops had found Saul's Mercedes at Mr. Motor that they were pretty sure had the bodies in the trunk, but the cops never inspected it. When they were selling the house a year later, it turned out there were even bigger bloodstains under the kids' beds that the cops had never found. Yeah. Hey, don't blame Larry Bird.
He went to England to try to solve this thing.
It tore the family apart, and since there were no remains, they couldn't even have a Jewish burial for them to get some closure on this. Elaine's mom put out a $10,000 reward for any information, but nobody had any. And in 1985, the courts just gave up as well and pronounced the Salomons legally dead. But then in December 1986, Rader was finally deported for having lied on his immigration papers when he first came to the U.S., but just 3 months after that, he tried coming back into the United States under a fake name. I'm John Belushi, for which he was immediately arrested and sent to state prison. But Detective Larry Bird just couldn't shake this case, and he knew deep down this is a slam dunk. That even though
this is a 3-pointer.
This is a game of horse. That's all I know about basketball. I can't go any further. He knew that even though all the evidence was circumstantial, that Rader had murdered the Salomon family. He was sure of this. He said Rader even looked like a con man from old British movies. Quote, right down to the teeth. And Rader coming back into the country and going to federal prison just reignited his quest here. He was sure Rader had planted those passports they found on the side of the road to throw them off of the real trail. And May 13th, 1987, he even had the parking lot of the old Mr. Motors ripped up just to see if there were any bodies down there. There weren't, but for whatever reason, he still felt he had a strong enough case. So the second Rader got out of federal prison in August 1988, he was once again arrested for murder by the LAPD, and this time he was going to court. His first trial began May 6, 1989, and he faced the death penalty, but the jury deadlocked 11-1 because one of the jurors wasn't even sure the Salomons were dead because there's habeas corpus. So this ended in a mistrial. The second trial was on January 4th, 1990, and it lasted 1 day before it ended in a mistrial because of a conflict of interest amongst the lawyers. Then came the third trial in 1992. This time Rader was being represented by, you guessed it, the lawyer who represented Lyle Menendez. I want the other one.
Yeah.
This person also represented one of the Rampart cops.
Oh boy.
So their strategy this time was to focus on those doubts that one of the jurors had in the first trial. If there's no body, how can we be sure they're dead? Maybe the Salomons staged their own disappearance. So they brought in 3...
Maybe they staged their own blood.
Yeah, maybe they just bled a little that day. They brought in 3 dubious witnesses who claimed they saw Saul in Carpinteria a few days after he disappeared, and the strategy worked. There just wasn't enough evidence to convict, despite an employee of Rader's who had asked Rader after the disappearance what he thought happened, and he said, Saul, he found himself a place in the Mojave, 2x2 and 1/2x6. So still not enough evidence.
No.
And so Rader was acquitted and was never tried again for what happened. What he did do was sell the rights to the story to get a TV movie made with Angela Lansbury playing Elaine's mom.
Wow.
And Larry Bird as Larry Bird. But that never happened. So the question remains, how hard is it to make a movie in Hollywood? What happened to the Salomons? Are they actually dead? If the bodies are out there in the desert, they were most likely mummified in the sand, so it wouldn't be too hard to find them unless they were thrown in one of the old mine shafts out there. Occasionally, the sheriff's department still looks in that area for any signs, but nothing has ever been found. Or maybe Saul was an intelligence spy for Israel and got called back home. Or maybe the family got taken away by witness protection. But if that were the case, the government wouldn't have allowed Rader to be put on trial for murder in the first place. So nobody will ever know for sure what happened, but let me just say this. Rader did it. There's no way he didn't do it.
There's no way he didn't do it.
Those teeth, the John Belushi look, those teeth.
He was growing Uzis out of his mouth.
Pulled off a tooth, it was an Uzi. Yeah, it's so weird that the house was literally facing my homeroom in middle school. Because you know what's weird, when my parents moved into the house they live in now, I remember we were looking, I was with them, I'm their financial advisor when I was in 5th grade, but we were looking in that area, and I remember them saying, I don't know if it was in the house we were in or just in the neighborhood, they said someone was murdered in this house, and I'm wondering if we almost moved into that house.
Oh, you can get it on cheap if you're okay with sleeping in the daughter's room.
Yeah, there's a few pieces of the carpet missing, but It's very weird.
Yeah,
It's
very weird.
upsetting when these things are so close to your home.
Some would say it's spooky.
I would say weird.
I'd say downright spooky, spookified. You said mummies in the
think it's
desert.
Spookalicious. Yeah. If you're trying to tell me this isn't spooky, you shouldn't bring up.
Mummified corpses in the
But
desert.
they were almost werewolfified in the desert.
That's awful.
Yeah, but again, like, what happened? The thing is that, like, if they did die, they could be buried literally anywhere. And if they did just leave, they could literally be anywhere. That's the beautiful thing about a body, alive or dead. It could be anywhere. You want to have a talk down after that? You want to get spooky here for a second?
For only 1 second, since this whole thing hasn't been spooky.
And then we'll put a pin in the spooky until December. Hey, look, people go missing.
And it's terrifying.
You never know. These families never know, and they never got closure on this.
That's really, it's just like...
It's one thing for Gertrude Silver to go down in a plane crash. Like, that's one thing. But Harvey Rader's still alive. Mm-hmm. He might still be living in Los Angeles. Yeah. And did you kill these people? Like, did you ruin this family? Because I was trying to look him up online, and I think I might have found his phone number. Jesus. I was going to have him on.
He passed the test with Larry Bird, but has he passed the test with Daniel Zaffron?
Yeah. Or my detective name, Shaquille O'Neal. Or Melissa's detective name. Her nickname is Magic, and her last name is Johnson. So
her first name is Magic Johnson. Her last name is Scottie Pippen.
The old nickname, Michael Jordan. And that's where my basketball knowledge ends. Yeah, it's weird, but it's not weird. Spooky.
It's spooky. You know what the spookiest part is?
That I won't let you call it spooky.
That you won't let me call it spooky. Stuff left behind, like the uneaten salad with the lights on.
Yeah, food on the stove.
Food on the stove.
Yeah, it's weird. Like the Los Feliz murder house. I mean, we know what happened there, but it's still just like a time capsule.
Exactly.
The dog sitting by the pool waiting to be fed.
The dog sitting by the pool that's overflowing. That's spooky.
It's strange for sure. So
I would say it's spooky.
It's altogether ooky, but it's not spooky. So that's been our October episode. Have as good of a Halloween as you can. There's some drive-through things going on that sold out immediately, but
I'll be driving through Carroll Street like I always do.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see some of you there in a car.
Trick-or-treating car to car. I'm going to drive my car up to your car. They say don't do trunk or treats, but if we just touch trunks, we back into each other.
Trunk or treat.
Trick-or-treating for cars is getting their batteries jumped.
It's not going door to door to get gas. A fun-sized amount of gas.
Door. But yeah, have as much fun as you can. Yeah. Feel free to get spooky, not during this episode.
Yeah. Hey, as I always recommend, there's lots of locations where horror movies were filmed in LA. I say go check the Halloween house.
Now's the time. I swear to God, if you promote the Halloween house one more time on this podcast.
Me and my dog go walking there every day. I try to get a good picture of him. He won't do it. He's more of a Friday the 13th fan.
Can you take me to Lake Crystal Lake or whatever?
Lake Crystal Lake.
So yeah, have a happy Halloween and stay safe.
Wear a mask 24/7 now.
Yeah, because you know.
If
Because, I'm hungry and I've run out of things to say. Keep being safe, everybody. Yeah. We'll see you in November. For your listener-fueled questions, send us all of your answers. Do you have any final words?
Well, this has been the spookiest episode yet.
I dare say. This has been our most logical episode yet.
Oh, your birthday's in 2 days. Everybody say happy birthday to this moron.
Happy birthday
it's to this moron. It's also our 7th.
Yeah,
comedy's 7th year birthday.
Yeah, and podcast birthday is shortly after that. Is the August?
It's November is when it first was released, but we did it in like October, I think.
So the next episode is the anniversary episode.
It sure is.
Happy
7 years.
Anniversary, Mr. Bad Podcast. Okay, that's enough of this.
I'm starving.
We'll see you next time, and as always, that's been yet another episode of LA Meekly. Caw, 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 caw. Since 2013.
I want to get one more real one.
I know, they've been replaced by the owls for the night.
Owls with crow feet sticking out of their mouths.
Really chubby owls.